I pulled up to my parents' house expecting the quiet Tuesday dinner Mom had promised. Instead, cars lined 3 blocks deep. Walking through the front door, I froze. 88 people packed our living room beneath a glittering banner reading, "Welcome, baby Emily." My mother beamed, champagne glass raised. "Surprise, we spent your bonus on family joy, my entire $15,600 year-end bonus. The one I'd worked 80-hour weeks to earn." I smiled tightly. "Noted." Nobody noticed my hands trembling as I reached for my phone. The noise from the party felt like static in my ears as I stepped onto the back porch, my phone already displaying my banking app. The loading screen seemed to take forever, each second stretching like an eternity, while laughter erupted from inside. When the balance finally appeared, my stomach dropped through the floorboards. $0 stared back at me from where $15,600 should have been. My fingers shook as I scrolled through the transaction history. There it was, withdrawn at 7:32 this morning, exactly 3 minutes after the direct deposit hit. The description simply read, "Authorized user withdrawal." My mind raced back to 2 years ago when I'd had emergency gallbladder surgery. Mom had insisted on being added to my account just in case something happened. I'd been too drugged up on pain medication to think clearly, too grateful for her help to question why she needed full access instead of just being an emergency contact. Through the kitchen window, I watched her work the room like a professional hostess, her navy dress swirling as she moved between clusters of relatives I hadn't seen in years. Some I didn't even recognize. She caught my eye and waved enthusiastically, gesturing for me to come inside. The smile on her face was the same one she'd worn this morning when we talked on the phone, when she'd asked if I was excited about my bonus, when she'd confirmed our quiet dinner was still on for tonight. "Julian, get in here." My Aunt Margaret's voice boomed through the screen door. "You have to congratulate Emily." Emily. The name hit me like ice water. My cousin Emily, who hadn't spoken to me since she'd shown up to my college graduation party with my boyfriend of 3 years on her arm. Emily, who'd posted their engagement photos on social media exactly 1 year later, tagging our entire family except me. Emily, who was apparently now carrying the baby being celebrated with my hard-earned money. I forced myself back inside, my professional smile automatically sliding into place. The crowd parted as Emily emerged from the dining room, her hand resting on a belly that barely showed under her flowing pink dress. Her engagement ring caught the light, the same ring I'd once helped my ex-boyfriend shop for when I thought it would be mine. "Julian," she squealed, rushing forward with arms outstretched. "I'm so glad you could make it. Your mom said you might be too busy with work, but I told her you wouldn't miss this for the world." The hug felt like being wrapped in barbed wire. Over her shoulder, I spotted my mother watching us with satisfaction, raising her champagne glass in a mock toast. Around us, relatives snapped photos with their phones, capturing what they thought was a touching family moment. "Congratulations," I managed, my voice surprisingly steady. "This is quite the surprise." Emily pulled back, her eyes sparkling with something that might have been malice or triumph. "Your mom has been planning this for weeks. She said she wanted to do something special for the family, bring everyone together. Isn't she amazing?" Weeks. My mother had been planning this for weeks while calling me every single day, asking about my work, my stress levels, my upcoming bonus. She'd even offered to cook my favorite pot roast for our dinner tonight, knowing I'd been living on takeout and microwave meals during our busy season. Every conversation had been a lie, every concerned question just gathering intelligence for this moment. "Speaking of your mom," Emily continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially, "she mentioned you've been working so hard lately. Maybe now you can finally relax a little. Take a vacation. I hear Costa Rica is lovely this time of year." The specific mention of Costa Rica sent a chill down my spine. It was too random, too pointed. Before I could respond, my mother appeared at my elbow, sliding her arm through mine with practiced ease. "There's my hard-working girl," she announced loudly enough for nearby relatives to hear. Everyone, raise your glasses to Julian, whose dedication to her career made this beautiful celebration possible. The room erupted in cheers and applause. Glasses clinked, cameras flashed, and I stood there like a statue while my mother basked in the glory of her generosity. My generosity. Technically, though, none of these people knew that. To them, she was the perfect hostess, the loving mother who brought the family together. Mom, I said quietly, my lips barely moving. We need to talk. Later, sweetheart, she patted my arm dismissively. Right now, we celebrate. Oh, and I put your cousin Danny in your old room since he drove in from Philadelphia. You don't mind, do you? I knew you'd want family to be comfortable. She was gone before I could respond, swept away by another wave of arriving guests. I stood alone in the center of the chaos, my mind cataloging every detail with the same precision I used to analyze financial fraud at work. The banner looked professionally made, not a last-minute purchase. The catering spread in the dining room included items from 3 different restaurants each, at least a 40-minute drive from here. The flowers adorning every surface were fresh, not from a grocery store, but from an actual florist. This wasn't just expensive, this was methodically, deliberately expensive. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Sarah. "How's the quiet family dinner going?" I almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. Instead, I typed back, "Interesting, very interesting." Around me, the party continued to swell. More relatives poured through the door, each one greeting my mother with enthusiasm and Emily with congratulations. Nobody seemed to notice or care that the supposed guest of honor stood frozen in place, calculating exactly how many hours of overtime, how many skipped lunches, how many canceled plans had funded this spectacle. 88 guests at last count. 88 people celebrating on my dime, raising toasts with champagne I'd inadvertently purchased eating food my exhaustion had paid for. And at the center of it all, my mother glowed with the satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, my trembling hands finally steady. If she wanted to play games with my money, she'd chosen the wrong opponent. I hadn't spent 5 years investigating financial fraud to become a victim of it. Not even when the perpetrator was my own mother. Noted, I whispered to myself again, the word taking on new meaning. Everything would be noted, everything would be documented, and everything would be rectified. The party swirled on around me, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath my calm exterior. Let them celebrate. Let them toast. Let them think they'd won. They had no idea what was coming. The kitchen provided temporary refuge from the chaos, though even here relatives milled about, refilling drinks and loading plates with food. I recognized the shrimp cocktail arrangement from Ocean View, the most expensive restaurant in town, and the mini quiches from that French bakery that charged $8 per pastry. My mental calculator continued its grim tallying while I poured myself a glass of water, needing something to do with my hands. "Julian," a quiet voice made me turn. My Aunt Patricia stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Unlike the others, she wasn't carrying champagne or wearing a party smile. "Could we talk privately?" Patricia had always been different from the rest of my mother's siblings. Where they were loud and dramatic, she remained reserved and watchful. Growing up, I'd noticed how she often sat at the edges of family gatherings, observing rather than participating. Now something in her eyes made me nod and follow her through the side door into the garage. The relative quiet was a relief, though we could still hear muffled laughter through the walls. Patricia leaned against my father's workbench, her arms crossed, studying me with the same intensity I'd seen her use when grading papers. She'd been a high school principal before retiring early, though nobody ever talked about why she'd left her career at 52. "How much did she take?" Patricia asked without preamble. The directness of the question knocked the breath from my lungs. "How did you?" "Because I've been watching her do this for 23 years. Patricia reached into her purse, pulling out an worn envelope. "And you're not the first victim, though you might be the boldest. Most family members just swallow their anger and move on." She handed me the envelope. Inside were photographs, some dating back to when I was a child. Each one showed a different elaborate party, a different celebration, a different banner. My hands stilled as I recognized the pattern in the backgrounds, the same satisfied smile on my mother's face in every image. This was my retirement party, Patricia pointed to the first photo. Surprise celebration for my 25 years in education. Except I'd been planning to use my retirement bonus to start a scholarship fund. Your mother had other ideas. The next photo showed a golden anniversary party for my grandparents. Uncle Robert's inheritance from Grandpa Joe. He'd planned to buy a fishing boat, finally pursue his dream after 40 years of factory work. Instead, we got this spectacular party that Grandpa Joe would have hated if he'd been alive to see it. My throat constricted as she flipped through more evidence. A graduation party funded by my cousin, Michael's scholarship money, a welcome home celebration using Aunt Dorothy's disability settlement. Each event looked perfect from the outside, full of smiling faces and beautiful decorations. Each one represented someone's dreams converted into my mother's moment of glory. But how, I managed to ask, how does she keep getting access? Patricia's smile was bitter. Your mother is a master at finding the moment when people are vulnerable. Surgery, like in your case. Grief, like when Uncle Robert was mourning Grandpa Joe. Illness celebration, any time when someone might need help or be distracted enough to trust her. She offers assistance positions herself as the caring family member who just wants to help manage things during a difficult time. And then she waits. Sometimes months, sometimes years, until there's enough money to make her move worthwhile. Always for the family, of course. Always to bring everyone together. Who could argue with such noble intentions? I sank onto a plastic storage container, my legs suddenly unable to support me. $15,600, my entire year-end bonus. That's actually modest by her standards. Patricia pulled out another photo. This was my nephew David's wedding, except David didn't know he was getting married. She threw a surprise engagement party using the $25,000 he'd saved for graduate school. When he protested, she'd already sent invitations, booked venues, ordered custom decorations. The guilt of canceling would have been social suicide in our family. Did he get married? Eventually, to someone else. The girl from the party left him when she realized he couldn't afford the lifestyle she'd been promised. He never did get that master's degree. The garage felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in as the full scope of my mother's activities became clear. This wasn't a spontaneous decision or even a recent development. This was a decades-long pattern of financial predation dressed up as family devotion. Why hasn't anyone stopped her? I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer. Because she's careful, never takes everything, always leaves enough for plausible deniability. And she's brilliant at managing the narrative. Watch how she works a room, Julian. Notice who she talks to first, who she positions near the cameras, who gets the special attention. By the end of tonight, everyone here will have a story about her generosity, her dedication to family unity. Patricia moved closer, lowering her voice even further. But there's something else. Something I discovered when I started keeping track. Your mother doesn't just throw these parties for show. She studies people during them. Watches who drives expensive cars, who mentions promotions, who seems to be doing well. She's shopping for her next target, even while celebrating the current one. A burst of laughter from inside made us both freeze. Through the small window, I could see my mother leading a toast, Emily glowing beside her as the center of attention, the perfect picture of family harmony built on stolen dreams. There's more, Patricia said, reaching deeper into her purse. She pulled out a small notebook, its pages filled with neat handwriting. I've been documenting everything. Dates, amounts, methods. I even tried to warn a few people, but nobody believed you, I finished. Worse. She found out I was talking. The next family gathering was a celebration of my early retirement. She spun this whole story about my dedication to education, my selfless decision to step back and let younger teachers shine. Nobody questioned why a principal at the top of her career would suddenly retire. Nobody except me knew she'd gained access to my pension information and was one signature away from borrowing against it. The notebook felt heavy in my hands as I flipped through pages of meticulous records, names I recognized, dates that corresponded to family memories, amounts that made my stomach churn. The total was staggering, representing not just money but futures derailed opportunities lost to dreams deferred. She's escalating, Patricia observed. The parties are getting bigger, the amounts larger. Emily showing up tonight isn't random either. Your mother's been cultivating her for months, possibly years. I've seen them having lunch together, shopping trips, private conversations. Emily's not just a guest of honor, she's an apprentice. The revelation hit like a physical blow. My mother wasn't just stealing money, she was creating a successor, ensuring her methods would continue even after she could no longer execute them herself. The family dysfunction wasn't just personal, it was generational. What do we do? I asked, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Patricia studied me for a long moment, seeming to weigh her options. That depends on you. Most people take their losses and distance themselves. Move away, limit contact, protect themselves for the future. It's the sensible choice. And the other option, a ghost of a smile crossed her face. The other option is what I've been waiting 23 years for. Someone with the skills, the evidence, and the anger to actually fight back. Someone who understands that this isn't just about money. It's about patterns of abuse disguised as love. Through the window, the party continued in full swing. My mother had moved on to showing off what looked like a professionally produced photo album, probably documenting Emily's journey to motherhood with pictures that cost more than most people's car payments. The irony of using my bonus to celebrate the woman who'd stolen my boyfriend wasn't lost on me. I need to know everything, I said, meeting Patricia's eyes. Every detail, every victim, every method she's used. And I need to know who else might be willing to talk. Patricia's smile widened, becoming something fierce and protective. I was hoping you'd say that. There are others, Julian. People who've been waiting for someone like you. People who've kept quiet out of shame or fear or misplaced family loyalty. Your mother thinks she's untouchable because she's operated in shadows and silence for so long. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts. But shadows only exist until someone turns on the lights, and silence breaks when enough voices speak at once. The question is, are you ready for what you might find? Because once we start pulling this thread, the entire fabric of our family's public image is going to unravel. I thought about the 88 people currently celebrating in my parents' house, oblivious to the foundation of deception beneath their feet. I thought about Uncle Robert's fishing boat, David's graduate degree, Patricia's scholarship fund, all the dreams converted into my mother's momentary glory. I'm ready, I said, and meant it. Patricia squeezed my shoulder, the gesture more maternal than anything my actual mother had done in years. Then let's begin. But first you need to go back in there. Play the part she expects. The devoted daughter, perhaps a little hurt, but ultimately understanding. Give her no reason to suspect anything has changed. And then we gather the others. There's strength in numbers. Julian, and your mother's greatest weapon has always been our isolation. She counts on shame, keeping us silent and separated. But secrets lose their power when shared, and patterns become undeniable when documented. She handed me a business card with just a phone number, no name. Call this tomorrow. Someone will answer who's been waiting for this conversation for a very long time. As I turned to leave, Patricia caught my arm one last time. Julian, that bonus of yours might be the best investment you never intended to make, because what you've lost in money, you're about to gain in truth. And truth, especially in a family built on lies, is worth more than any dollar amount. Walking back into the party felt like entering a theater where everyone knew their roles except me. But I was a quick study, and I'd just been handed the script to a very different play than the one my mother thought she was directing. The celebration continued around me, but now I saw it differently. Every laugh felt hollow, every toast tainted, every moment of manufactured joy built on someone else's sacrifice. But I smiled, I mingled, I even hugged Emily again when prompted, because Patricia was right. The show had to go on, at least for tonight. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 9 as I finally escaped to the upstairs bathroom, the only place I could lock the door without raising suspicion. The party showed no signs of slowing down. If anything, more people seemed to arrive every hour. Through the floor, I could hear the bass thump of music someone had started playing, transforming my childhood home into a nightclub funded by my financial sacrifice. I sat on the closed toilet lid, phone in hand, forcing myself to breathe slowly. The banking app showed the same cruel 0 in my checking account, but something Patricia said echoed in my mind. My mother never took everything. She always left enough for plausible deniability. So why was my checking account completely empty? My fingers moved to the investment app I rarely checked. The loading screen spun endlessly, my heart rate accelerating with each passing second. When it finally loaded, I bit my lip to keep from crying out. The modest investment account I'd been building since college, my careful attempts at planning for the future, showed a balance of $43.18. $5,000 gone. The emergency fund app was next. This account wasn't even at the same bank specifically chosen for its security features and limited access. But the balance told the same story. $12.91 remained of the $3,000 I'd saved for genuine emergencies. My hand shook so violently I nearly dropped the phone. How had she accessed accounts at different institutions? Accounts she shouldn't even know existed. A knock at the door made me jump. "Julian, honey, are you all right in there?" My mother's voice sweet with false concern. "People are asking for you." "Just freshening up," I called back, proud of how normal I sounded. "Be right out." Her footsteps retreated, but I knew I had limited time. I pulled up my credit monitoring app, something I'd installed but rarely checked. The screen that loaded made my blood run cold. 3 new credit cards had been opened in my name within the last 6 months, each one maxed out. Total debt, $18,400. My mother hadn't just stolen my savings, she'd stolen my future. I switched to my email, searching for any communication from these credit card companies. Nothing in my main inbox, but when I checked the spam folder there, they were. Dozens of emails about new accounts, balance transfers, payment confirmations, all filtered away where I'd never see them. The billing addresses were different too, not my apartment but my parents' house. My childhood home had become the headquarters for my financial destruction. Forcing myself to think like the fraud investigator I was, I began taking screenshots of everything. Every transaction, every timestamp, every detail that would be crucial later. The pattern that emerged was methodical, almost professional. Small test transactions first, then gradually increasing amounts. The timing was perfect too, always just after my pay periods when I was least likely to check balances immediately. The bathroom doorknob rattled. "Julian Elizabeth Montgomery," my mother's voice had lost its sweetness. "We have guests." "Sorry, Mom, coming." I stood up, slipping my phone into my pocket, and caught my reflection in the mirror. My face was pale but composed, the same mask I wore when presenting fraud cases to law enforcement. Tonight, I was both investigator and victim, but nobody needed to know that yet. Opening the door, I found my mother waiting in the hallway, her party smile not quite reaching her eyes. "There you are. I was starting to worry you were sick." "Just needed a moment," I said, matching her fake concern with my own. "It's overwhelming seeing everyone." Her expression softened, buying the act completely. "I knew you'd love it. Family is everything, sweetheart. Everything." She linked her arm through mine, leading me back toward the stairs. As we walked, I noticed her purse on the hallway table, designer leather that I now recognized I'd probably paid for. While she guided me forward, chatting about which relatives had traveled furthest for the party, my free hand brushed against her bag. The zipper was partially open, and I could see the edge of what looked like financial documents inside. "Oh," I stopped suddenly. "I left my lipstick in the bathroom. Go ahead, I'll be right down." She hesitated, but someone called her name from below. "Don't be long," she warned, then descended the stairs with the grace of a queen returning to her court. I counted to 10, then darted back to her purse. Inside was a treasure trove of evidence she'd been careless enough to bring to her own crime scene. Bank statements with my name but not my address. Credit card receipts for the party supplies, each one signed with a forgery of my signature. And at the bottom, a small notebook similar to Patricia's but with a very different purpose. Each page had a family member's name, their estimated income, recent major expenses or windfalls, and a rating system using stars. 5 stars appeared next to my name along with the notation, "Year-end bonus, confirmed December date, surgery access still active." I photographed every page, my anger crystallizing into cold determination. Other names had stars too. My cousin Marcos, recently promoted to senior paralegal, had 4 stars. A note beside his name read, "Still trusts after Daniel situation. Approach through sympathy angle. Daniel." I remembered whispers about Marcus's ex-husband, something about identity theft during their divorce. Now, I wondered if my mother had played a role in that too. Footsteps on the stairs forced me to shove everything back into place. I grabbed my lipstick from the bathroom and met my father coming up. "There you are, kiddo," he said, but something in his expression seemed off. He looked tired, older than his 62 years, and his smile didn't quite work. "Your mother sent me to fetch you. Emily's about to open gifts." "Dad," I started, then stopped. How could I tell him his wife of 34 years was a serial fraud artist? How could I explain that the woman he'd built a life with had been systematically destroying their children's futures? "I know that look," he said, quietly glancing behind him. "You're doing that thing where you analyze everything, just like when you were little and figured out Santa wasn't real because the handwriting matched your mother's." The comparison hit harder than he could know. Back then, I'd kept the secret to protect the magic for others. Now, I was keeping secrets to protect myself from further damage. We walked downstairs together, his hand on my elbow, as if he sensed I needed steadying. The living room had been rearranged to create a gift opening station with Emily, positioned like a princess holding court. Mountains of wrapped presents surrounded her, each one likely purchased by a relative who had no idea they were participating in a money laundering scheme. "Before we start," my mother announced, producing a professional camera, "let's thank Julian again for making this possible. Come here. Sweetheart, stand next to Emily." Every eye in the room turned to me. The weight of their attention, their gratitude for my supposed generosity, felt like drowning in quicksand. I moved forward on autopilot, letting Emily pull me down beside her. "Smile," my mother commanded, and I did. The camera clicked repeatedly, capturing evidence of my compliance, my participation in my own robbery. Each photo would no doubt be posted on social media with captions about family unity and sisterly love. Emily leaned close, her voice barely a whisper. "Your mom says you're considering that vacation to Costa Rica. Smart move. Sometimes it's better to just step away from things you know." The threat was subtle but clear. They wanted me gone out of the country, unable to interfere with whatever came next. I maintained my smile even as I whispered back, "Actually, I'm thinking of staying close to home. Family is everything, right?" Her grip on my arm tightened on painfully. But before she could respond, someone called for the gift opening to begin. I extracted myself and found a spot near the back of the room, my mind racing through the implication of everything I'd discovered. $23,000 stolen from various accounts, $18,000 in fraudulent credit card debt, and based on my mother's notebook, I was just one of many stars in her constellation of victims. The scale was staggering, the betrayal complete. But as I watched her orchestrate the gift opening, directing the action like a film director, I realized something else. She'd made one crucial mistake. In her confidence, she'd given me access to too much information. The receipts in her purse, the notebook with its ratings and strategies, the credit cards sent to this address instead of being hidden completely. She'd gotten comfortable sloppy with success. My phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "Patricia gave me your information. We need to talk. There are 8 of us now. Marcus." 8 victims willing to speak. 8 stories that could establish a pattern no law enforcement agency could ignore. I typed back, carefully aware that my mother kept glancing my way. Tomorrow, I need tonight to gather evidence. Be careful, came the immediate reply. She escalates when cornered. I pocketed my phone, returning my attention to the spectacle before me. Emily was holding up a silver baby rattle that probably cost more than most people's car payments, gushing over its perfection, while my mother captured every moment on camera. Looking around the room, I wondered how many of these relatives were here, celebrating with money that wasn't theirs to spend. How many had been my mother's previous victims? How many were future targets? How many were simply oblivious to the con game playing out in front of them? The grandfather clock chimed 10, and I made a decision. I had 1 hour left to play the perfect daughter to give them no reason for suspicion. Then I would go home to my empty apartment and begin the real work. Every screenshot, every photo, every piece of evidence would be organized and cataloged with the same precision I used in my professional investigations. My mother had spent months planning this party, years perfecting her methods, decades building her criminal enterprise disguised as family devotion. But she'd made one miscalculation. She'd chosen a target who not only had the skills to fight back, but now had the motivation to see it through to the end. As Emily opened another gift, holding up designer baby clothes that could have paid my rent, I smiled for the cameras one more time. Let them think they'd won. Let them celebrate their victory. By morning, they'd learned that parties built on stolen funds have a way of ending badly, and this one had only just begun. The kitchen clock showed 10:30 when I finally decided to confront my mother. The party had reached that late stage where older relatives were making departure announcements while younger ones settled in for hours more. I found her alone in the kitchen, carefully wrapping leftover food that had cost more than most people's mortgage payments. She looked up as I entered, her face shifting into that practiced maternal smile. "There you are. Could you help me with these? I want to send some home with Aunt Margaret. You know how she struggles since Uncle Pete passed." The casual cruelty of the statement, using Uncle Pete's death as a conversation piece while stealing from his survivors, made my skin crawl. But I moved beside her, picking up aluminum foil with steady hands. "Mom," I began, keeping my voice low and controlled, "we need to talk about my accounts." Her hands never paused in their wrapping. "What about them, sweetheart? If you're worried about the automatic transfer for the party expenses, don't be. I kept all the receipts for your taxes." The audacity was breathtaking. She'd created a paper trail to make it look like I'd authorized everything. I set down the foil, turning to face her directly. "You took $23,000 from multiple accounts. You opened credit cards in my name. This isn't about party expenses." For a fraction of a second, something flickered across her face. Surprise that I'd discovered the full extent, perhaps. Then her expression crumbled into devastation. The transformation was so quick, so complete, that for a moment I almost believed it was genuine. "Oh, Julian," she whispered, tears already forming in her eyes. "It's happening again." "What's happening again?" She pressed a hand to her chest, stumbling slightly. I reached out instinctively to steady her, and she gripped my arm with surprising strength. I prayed this wouldn't come back. Dr. Morrison said the new medication was working so well. Ice formed in my stomach. "What are you talking about?" "Honey, we need to call Dr. Morrison first thing Monday. These delusions about money being stolen, people conspiring against you, we've been through this before." Her voice had taken on a careful, therapeutic quality, as if speaking to a child or mental patient. "I don't have episodes. I don't have delusions. You stole my money." She released my arm, backing away with exaggerated caution. "Sweetheart, think about it logically. How could I access accounts I don't even know about? Why would I steal from my own daughter? This is the paranoia talking, just like during your junior year of college." Junior year, when I'd had a mental breakdown from academic stress, spending 2 weeks in counseling. She was weaponizing the lowest point of my life, twisting genuine mental health struggles into a narrative that served her purposes. "No," I said firmly. You added yourself to my accounts when I had surgery. I have the transaction records. I have screenshots. Her tears came faster now, mascara creating delicate trails down her cheeks. Oh God, she's documenting again, writing things down, creating evidence for conspiracies that don't exist. She moved toward the kitchen door. Everyone needs to know, for your own safety. Don't you dare, I warned, but she was already pushing through to the dining room. Everyone please. Her voice carried the perfect note of maternal anguish. I need your help. Julian is having another episode. The conversations died instantly. 80-some faces turned toward us, confusion and concern replacing celebration. I stood frozen in the doorway as my mother centered herself in the room, the picture of a devoted parent facing crisis. Some of you remember what happened during her college years. She continued, her voice breaking artfully. The paranoia, the accusations, the belief that everyone was against her. We thought we had it under control, but the stress of her job. That's not what happened, I said, but my voice sounded weak against her performance. She thinks I stole money from her, my mother announced, as if the very idea was absurd. She's been upstairs documenting things, taking pictures, creating elaborate theories. Dr. Morrison warned us this might happen if she went off her medication. I'm not on medication. The words came out too sharp, too defensive, playing directly into her narrative. Around the room, I saw the shift in expressions. Concern deepening into pity, celebration morphing into intervention. Aunt Margaret stepped forward, her nurse's training evident in her approach. Julian, honey, when did you last take your pills? I don't take pills, I'm not sick. She's lying to all of you. The agitation is getting worse, my mother observed to the room at large. This is exactly how it started last time. The accusations, the anger, then the breakdown. Emily appeared at my mother's side, playing the role of supportive family perfectly. Maybe we should call someone a professional. I have a friend who works at Riverside Behavioral Health. Riverside, the psychiatric facility 2 towns over. They were discussing having me committed at my own robbery celebration. The irony might have been funny if it wasn't so terrifying. I am a fraud investigator, I said, forcing calm into my voice. I investigate financial crimes for a living. I know what theft looks like and I have evidence. The job stress, my mother interrupted, addressing the crowd rather than me. Dr. Morrison said high-pressure careers could trigger relapse. All those numbers, all that paranoia about people stealing, it's bleeding into her personal life. My father pushed through the crowd, his face etched with worry. Julian, kiddo, let's go somewhere quiet. We can talk about this. Even he believed her. My own father, who'd lived with both of us for decades, was choosing her fabrication over my truth. The betrayal cut deeper than the financial theft. Dad, I can show you the bank statements. I can prove. The documentation obsession, my mother sighed to Aunt Margaret. She did this before, notebooks full of evidence for things that never happened. We found them hidden all over her dorm room. That was a complete lie. I'd never hidden notebooks, I'd never documented conspiracies, but she delivered the fiction with such conviction that people were nodding, remembering things that had never occurred. Poor thing, someone whispered, so young to be dealing with such severe mental health issues. Her mother is a saint for protecting her, another voice agreed. Imagine throwing a party for someone who might accuse you of stealing. The room was closing in the weight of their collective delusions suffocating. Every word I might say had been preemptively discredited. Every piece of evidence would be seen as a symptom rather than proof. She'd created a perfect trap, one that tightened the more I struggled against it. My phone buzzed. Marcus again. Get out, now. She did this to me during my divorce. Claimed I was having psychotic episodes, nearly got me committed. Run. But running would look like guilt, like the paranoid flight of someone in mental crisis. Staying meant being surrounded by people who now saw me as unstable, dangerous to myself, in need of control. I think, my mother said slowly, as if making a difficult decision, we should keep Julian here tonight for observation, just to be safe. That's kidnapping, I stated flatly. See, she appealed to the crowd. She thinks her own family wants to kidnap her. This is the illness talking. Hands reached for me from multiple directions. Gentle, caring hands that believed they were helping. Aunt Margaret with her nurse's training, Emily with her false concern, others whose names I couldn't remember, but whose faces reflected my mother's manufactured worry. Don't touch me. I backed away, knowing how it looked, but unable to stop myself. I'm leaving. I'm going home. You can't drive in this state, my father said softly. Please, kiddo, just stay. Let us help you. I'm calling the police, I announced, pulling out my phone. My mother's expression didn't change, but something triumphant flickered in her eyes. Yes, please do. They're familiar with the situation. Officer Chen responded last time you had an episode. He was very understanding. Last time. The lie had become so elaborate, so detailed that even law enforcement had been prepped for my supposed mental illness. I stood there, phone in hand, realizing the depth of the preparation that had gone into this moment. Fine, I said, finally lowering the phone. I'll stay, but I'm sleeping in my car. With the doors locked, thinking people are coming for you? My mother narrated sadly. Classic paranoid behavior, but if that makes you feel safer, sweetheart, of course. I pushed through the crowd, their pitying stares following my retreat. Behind me, I heard my mother organizing sleeping arrangements for relatives, discussing treatment options with Aunt Margaret, playing the martyred parent with Oscar-worthy skill. In the garage, I locked myself in my car and finally allowed myself to shake. Not with mental illness, not with paranoia, but with rage and recognition. She hadn't just stolen my money. She'd stolen my credibility, my family's trust, my ability to seek help. The gaslighting was so comprehensive that reality itself had become negotiable. Patricia's words echoed in my memory. She escalates when cornered. This was escalation in its purest form. Unable to deny the theft once confronted, she'd simply rewritten reality to make the theft impossible, the victim unreliable, the crime a delusion. I started the car not to leave, but for the heater and the illusion of escape. Through the garage window, I could see the party resuming the brief interruption of my episode, already being absorbed into the night's narrative. By tomorrow, the story would have spread through our extended network. Julian's mental health crisis at poor Emily's baby shower, her mother's grace under pressure, the family rallying to support their troubled daughter. But I had something my mother didn't know about. 8 other victims who'd survived their own gaslighting attempts. Patricia's decades of documentation, Marcus's legal knowledge and personal experience with her methods, and most importantly, professional training in unraveling complex frauds, even ones wrapped in layers of psychological manipulation. My phone lit up with messages from the unknown numbers Patricia had forwarded, each one a variation of the same theme. We believe you, we've been there, hold on. I typed back a single message to the group. She's escalated to claiming I'm mentally ill, following the playbook Marcus warned about. Still collecting evidence, we move forward as planned. The responses came quickly. Offers of safe houses, psychiatric professionals who couldn't be fooled, lawyers who specialized in financial abuse. A network of survivors who'd learned to navigate the maze my mother had built. Through the windshield, I watched my childhood home glow with false warmth. Inside, my mother was probably already spinning new narratives, adding details to my supposed illness, preparing for whatever came next. She thought she'd won by destroying my credibility before I could use it against her. But she'd made a critical error. In her performance, she'd revealed too much. The quick pivot to mental illness, the prepared details about past episodes, the mention of Officer Chen. These weren't improvised responses. This was a rehearsed strategy, one she'd used before. And strategies, as any fraud investigator knows, create patterns. Patterns create evidence. And evidence, when properly presented, speaks louder than any performance. I settled back in the driver's seat, preparing for a long night. Let her think I was cowering in paranoid delusion. Let the family believe her manufactured concern. Let the party continue on the foundation of my financial ruin. By morning, the real investigation would begin. And unlike my mother's theatrical fiction, the truth had something powerful on its side. It was actually true. Dawn was breaking through my apartment windows when I finally made it home, having slipped away from my parents' house at 4 in the morning while the last relatives slept off their champagne. The drive had been silent except for my racing thoughts, cataloging every piece of evidence I'd need to organize. My hands were steady now, the shock replaced by the cold focus I used when investigating corporate fraud cases worth millions. I dropped my keys on the counter and went straight to my home office, a converted bedroom that served as my personal command center. 3 monitors faced me from the desk, usually reserved for overtime work. This morning, they'd serve a different purpose. What my mother didn't know, what she couldn't know from her surface-level surveillance of my life, was that my job as a fraud investigator was only part of my expertise. The certifications hanging on the wall told a more complete story. Certified fraud examiner, certified anti-money laundering specialist, and crucially, certified information system security professional. 5 years ago, after discovering a colleague was embezzling through our company's supposedly secure system, I'd become obsessed with understanding how financial crimes intersected with technology. Weekend courses became night school, became a parallel expertise that my employer valued but didn't fully utilize. They saw me as a numbers person who happened to understand computers. They had no idea I could trace digital footprints through systems most people didn't know existed. I powered up my secure laptop, not the work one, but the personal machine I'd configured for maximum privacy. My fingers flew across the keyboard muscle memory, taking over as I accessed the virtual private network I'd set up years ago. From there, I logged into the banking platforms not through their consumer-facing websites, but through the deeper portals I'd learned about during my security training. The first thing I did was change every password, implementing 2-factor authentication with a physical security key my mother couldn't possibly access. But that was just defense. What I needed was offense. Every financial institution keeps logs, not just the transaction history customers see, but detailed audit trails of every login, every attempt, every change made to an account. Most people don't know these exist. Most people don't know how to request them. But I wasn't most people. I started with the checking account crafting a formal request under the Electronic Fund Transfer Act for complete access logs dating back 2 years. Then the investment accounts, the credit cards opened in my name, even the emergency fund at the credit union. Each request was precisely worded, citing specific regulations that would compel immediate response. My phone buzzed. Marcus, awake. We need to share intel before she spins more stories. I initiated a secure video call, appreciating that he was paranoid enough to suggest encrypted communication. His face appeared on screen, exhaustion evident, but eyes sharp with purpose. She got to my ex-husband during our divorce, he began without preamble. Convinced him I was stealing joint assets, hiding money, all while she was the one draining our accounts. By the time I figured it out, I'd lost custody battles because of my supposed financial irresponsibility. The mental illness angle, I asked, pulling up a document to take notes. Different flavor, same recipe. With me, it was gambling addiction. She had receipts from casinos I'd never visited, betting sites I'd never accessed, all purchased with cash to create a paper trail. The twist, she used the money she stole from me to create evidence that I was the one with problems. The elegance of the scheme was sickening. Frame the victim for the very crime being committed against them. I shared my screen, showing him the credit cards opened in my name. Look at the purchase patterns. Gambling sites would be too obvious for me, so instead, luxury goods and travel bookings, Marcus finished, making you look irresponsible in a way that fits your profile. She studies her victims. Patricia mentioned you were gathering others. How many? 8 confirmed who'll talk. Maybe 12 total, but some are still too scared or ashamed. She's hit at least 15 family members over 2 decades that we know of. Conservative estimate of damages, $2.3 million. The number hung between us massive and undeniable. This wasn't just family dysfunction or petty theft. This was organized crime with a holiday dinner table as its boardroom. I need you to understand something. Marcus continued, leaning closer to the camera. What you did last night, confronting her, you forced her hand. The mental illness play means she's moving to endgame. With me, after the gambling accusations failed to stick completely, she tried to have me arrested for elderly abuse. Of who? Her. Filed a report saying I'd been stealing from her, that the gambling debts made me desperate. Had bruises on her arms. She'd given herself security footage of me at her house that she'd edited to look threatening. If my boss hadn't vouched for my whereabouts on one crucial date, I'd have a record. I minimized our call and pulled up another program, this one a gift, from a cybersecurity conference years ago. It could trace IP addresses, track digital footprints, and most importantly, identify patterns in online behavior. I fed it the email addresses associated with the fraudulent credit cards. Got something? I muttered, watching data populate across my screen. The credit card applications all came from the same IP address, not my parents' house, a coffee shop 6 blocks away, same locations, same time of day, spread across 6 months. Establishing routine to avoid suspicion, Marcus noted, but why not use random locations? I cross-referenced the coffee shop's location with other data points, and the answer became clear. Because that coffee shop is where she meets Emily every Wednesday for their mentorship lunches. Emily's social media confirms it. She's been teaching Emily the family business while using the location as her base of operations. Can you prove Emily's involvement? Working on it. My fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing Emily's public digital footprint. Social media tagged photos, check-ins. The pattern emerged like a constellation. Every major theft from a family member corresponds to Emily suddenly having money. New car after Patricia's retirement bonus disappeared. Vacation to Hawaii right after your divorce settlement. Designer purchases matching the timeline of other victims' losses. Marcus whistled low. She's not just spending the money, she's laundering it through Emily. The protege gets a cut, probably thinks she's just accepting gifts from a generous aunt. Or knows exactly what she's doing, I countered, remembering Emily's whispered threat about Costa Rica. My secure email pinged. The first bank had responded to my records request, probably because I'd marked it as related to potential identity theft, and cited the exact statute that required response within 24 hours. The access logs were revealing. My mother had logged into my accounts 137 times in the past year, always from that same coffee shop, always during her Wednesday mentorship meetings. Marcus, I need the others' stories. Specifically, I need to know about methods, timelines, and any documentation they kept. Can you coordinate? Already on it. Patricia's hosting a meeting tomorrow night. Her house is the only one your mother doesn't have keys to. Can you make it? I'll be there. Another email arrived, this one from the credit monitoring service. Hold on, something's happening. The alert showed new activity. Someone was attempting to open another credit card in my name right now at 5:43 in the morning. The application was being submitted from... I traced the IP address. My parents' house. She's escalating, I told Marcus, trying to open new accounts while she thinks I'm having a mental breakdown, probably to make the fraud look like my own manic spending. Can you stop it? My lips curved into the first genuine smile I'd had in 12 hours. Already done. Fraud alerts placed on all credit bureaus as of 3 hours ago. The application just got auto-rejected. But she doesn't know that yet. We ended the call with promises to share everything at tomorrow's meeting. Alone again, I turned to the wall of monitors, each now displaying different aspects of my mother's criminal enterprise. Transaction logs on one screen, Emily's social media correlation on another, the growing list of victims and damages on the third. I'd spent 5 years learning to unravel complex financial crimes. Corporate embezzlement schemes with international components, money laundering operations spanning multiple jurisdictions, identity theft rings targeting thousands of victims. But none of those cases had prepared me for this specific challenge, investigating someone who'd raised me, who knew my weaknesses, who had decades of practice manipulating the people I loved. The sun was fully up, now painting my office in golden light that felt at odds with the darkness I was excavating. Somewhere across town, my mother was probably waking up confident in her victory. She'd painted me as unstable, isolated me from family support, and set the stage for whatever final play she had planned. But she'd miscalculated. She'd seen my career as just a job, not recognizing the expertise behind it. She'd counted on family loyalty and shame to keep her victims silent, not anticipating they might find each other. Most critically, she'd assumed that gaslighting would work on someone trained to see through deception professionally. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Stay strong. The truth is like water. It always finds a way through." I saved another batch of evidence to multiple encrypted cloud services, ensuring nothing could be deleted or destroyed. Then I started building the timeline, the visualization that would make the pattern undeniable to any law enforcement agency. 23 years of theft mapped out with the precision of a RICO investigation. My mother thought she was running a family drama. She had no idea she just became the subject of a financial crimes investigation run by someone who'd learned from the best in the business. Someone who had access to tools and techniques she couldn't imagine. Someone who'd inherited her strategic mind, but not her moral flexibility. I stood stretching muscles cramped from hours of intense focus. The investigation was just beginning, but already the scope was staggering. This wasn't just about recovering my $23,000 anymore. This was about dismantling a criminal enterprise that had operated under the cover of family gatherings and holiday dinners for over 2 decades. Time to show my mother what happened when you stole from someone who investigated theft for a living. She'd taught me to be careful with money, to pay attention to details, to always have a backup plan. I'd learned those lessons well, perhaps too well for her own good. My phone vibrated against the desk, the screen showing an unknown number with a local area code. After last night's events, I'd normally let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "You don't know me," a gravelly voice said without preamble. "But Patricia said you're Sandra's latest target. That true?" Sandra, my mother's name, sounded foreign when stripped of familial titles. "Who is this?" "Marcus said you're smart, so I'll be direct. Name's Bill. Your mother destroyed my construction business 11 years ago. I've been waiting for someone like you." I put the call on speaker, fingers poised over my keyboard to take notes. "How did she destroy your business?" "Family loyalty." His bitter laugh carried across the connection. "I was married to your cousin Diane then. Sandra convinced me to put her on my business accounts to help with bookkeeping during tax season. 6 months later, my equipment loans were in default, contracts were getting canceled because materials weren't paid for, and I was facing bankruptcy. The paper trail all led back to me. Every withdrawal had my supposed signature. Every vendor payment that got redirected looked like I'd done it. Lost my business, my marriage, most of my family, because who'd believe Sandra Montgomery would steal from her own nephew-in-law? The name hit like a slap. "You were Uncle Bill. Mom told us you abandoned Diane for a younger woman and fled the state." That's what she told everyone while I was sleeping in my truck trying to figure out how I'd gone from successful contractor to homeless in 8 months. Diane believed her. Everyone did. I became the villain in my own robbery. I pulled up old family photos on my personal laptop, finding one from Diane's wedding. Bill stood tall and proud next to my cousin, his construction company's logo visible on the truck in the background. Now his voice carried the weight of someone who'd lost everything. "Why call now?" I asked. "Because Marcus found me through LinkedIn last month, told me about the group. First time in 11 years anyone from the family believed me. We've been meeting, comparing notes, building a case. But we needed someone current, someone with access and skills." "How many in the group?" 8 who'll admit it, 4 more who are scared. Your grandmother's sister Eleanor is the oldest victim we've documented. The youngest was Marcus himself. She doesn't discriminate. Elderly, divorced, successful, struggling. If you have something she wants, you're a target. My email pinged. The secure message contained a single line: "Meeting tonight, 8 p.m. Patricia's house, bring everything, destroy this message." "I'll be at the meeting," Bill continued. "Fair warning, some folks are angry, not at you, but at what you represent. Another victim, another family member who trusted her. Don't take it personal if emotions run high. We ended the call and I immediately began preparing. The evidence I'd gathered needed to be organized, anonymized where necessary to protect ongoing access, and presented in a way that would be useful to a room full of traumatized relatives. The day passed in a blur of data analysis and preparation. I'd mapped financial patterns, created victim profiles, and built a timeline that would make any prosecutor weep with joy. By 7:30, I was driving toward Patricia's house, 3 backup drives hidden in various locations in my car. Patricia lived in a modest ranch house on the outskirts of town, far from the manicured lawns of my parents' neighborhood. Cars filled her driveway and lined the street, but I recognized none of them. These were the family members who'd been erased from our gatherings, written out of our history. She met me at the door, her expression grave. "They're all here. Some drove hours for this. You ready?" The living room had been arranged with chairs in a circle like a support group. 8 faces turned toward me. Some familiar from old photos, others complete strangers. The pain in their eyes was universal. Marcus stood first, gesturing to an empty chair. "Everyone, this is Julian, Sandra's latest project." 23,000 soars, I said, settling into the seat, plus 18,000 in fraudulent credit cards, as of this morning. "Amateur hour," a woman in her 60s snorted. "She got 42,000 from me in 93, my husband's life insurance payout." Around the circle, the stories poured out. Each person shared their amount, their year, their method of discovery. Bill's construction business, $67,000. Eleanor's reverse mortgage, $98,000. A cousin named David, whose college fund became a Caribbean cruise for 50 family members. The numbers stacked up like bodies in a war zone. "Total documented so far," Marcus said, consulting his notes. $2.7 million over 23 years. And that's just what we can prove. "She's escalating," Patricia observed. "The amounts are getting larger, the time frames shorter. Julian's theft was the fastest yet. 6 months from access to complete drain." "Because she's teaching Emily," I said, sharing what I'd discovered about their Wednesday meetings. "She's not just stealing anymore, she's franchising." The room erupted. Everyone had a story about Emily, her sudden wealth, her cruel comments, her presence at family events where victims were pointedly not invited. The pattern was clear. My mother was grooming a successor. "We tried police before," Eleanor said quietly. She was 87, sharp as a blade despite her age. 3 of us went together in 2008. Know what they said? Family matter. Civil issue. Take it to family court. "And Sandra's brother runs the local force," someone added. "Chief Montgomery isn't going to arrest his sister for family squabbles." I pulled out my laptop, connecting it to Patricia's TV. "Then we go federal. Wire fraud, identity, theft, tax evasion. These cross-state lines. I've been building a case file that matches RICO standards." The room fell silent as I walked them through my findings. The IP addresses, the pattern analysis, the documented evidence of conspiracy between my mother and Emily. Several people started crying when they saw their own thefts mapped onto the timeline, finally seeing themselves as part of a pattern rather than isolated victims. "There's something else," Bill said when I finished. "We think she killed someone." The words hung in the air like a bomb. Patricia nodded slowly. "Tell her about Robert." "Robert Chen," Bill continued. "Married into the family in 97. Software engineer doing well. Sandra got access to his startup's accounts, drained the funding. Company folded, investors sued. Robert was going to press charges, had evidence, was ready to go public. What happened? Car accident. Brake failure on a mountain road, no witnesses. Sandra was the one who suggested he take that road to clear his head after their heart-to-heart about family loyalty. My blood ran cold. That's speculation without proof. Maybe, Marcus said. But Robert's widow found his notes after. He'd documented everything, was planning to go to the FBI. Those notes disappeared during the funeral reception. Guess who organized the reception? The implications reframed everything. This wasn't just financial crime anymore. This was potentially something far darker. We can't prove murder, Eleanor said firmly, but we can prove the rest. Question is, are we all willing to go public, to testify, to air family laundry in federal court? One by one, hands raised around the circle. 8 confirmations, 8 people ready to reclaim their truth regardless of the cost. I raised mine last, completing the circle. There's a safe in her bedroom, I said, remembering the notebook from her purse, behind the painting of the lighthouse. I saw her open it once when I was 16, if she's kept trophies. She has, David confirmed. I saw her put my acceptance letter in there after she stole my college fund, said she was keeping it safe for me. Patricia stood, energy crackling through the room. Then we need a coordinated approach. Julian, can you maintain access without raising suspicion? She thinks I'm having a mental breakdown. I can play that role while gathering evidence. I'll coordinate with my contacts at the FBI, Marcus offered. My firm has worked with them before. They'll listen. I've got a forensic accountant who owes me favors, Bill added. She'll work pro bono once she hears the scope. The meeting transformed from support group to war council. Everyone had skills, contacts, resources they'd rebuilt after my mother's destruction. The teacher who'd lost her pension knew journalists. The contractor had connections in state government. The elderly woman had a nephew in the Justice Department. We were no longer isolated victims, but an organized response team. My mother had created her own opposition, through her crimes bringing together people who never would have united otherwise. As we exchanged secure contact information and planned next steps, I felt something I hadn't experienced in days: hope. Not just for financial recovery, but for justice that went beyond money. For validation of experiences gaslit into non-existence. For the restoration of family truth buried under decades of lies. One more thing, Patricia said as the meeting concluded. Sandra's not stupid. She'll notice if we all suddenly communicate. We maintain normal patterns, whatever those are. Some of you she thinks are dead out of state or no contact. Keep it that way. Julian's our inside person because she's still in the game. Everyone agreed and we dispersed into the night. Driving home, I felt the weight of their stories, their trust, their desperate need for someone to finally stop Sandra Montgomery's reign of financial terror. My phone buzzed at a red light. A text from my mother. Sweetheart, I've made you an appointment with Dr. Morrison for Monday. It's important we address your condition before it gets worse. Love you. I typed back carefully. Thank you for caring. I know I worried everyone last night. See you Monday. Let her think her gaslighting had worked. Let her believe I was accepting the narrative of mental illness. Every text, every interaction was now part of the investigation. 8 victims had become 9. But more importantly, 9 isolated targets had become a united force. My mother had stolen money, dreams, and reputations. We were about to steal them back. Saturday morning arrived with an encrypted file from Marcus that made my coffee turn cold in my hands. He'd spent the night researching Emily through legal databases, and what he'd found transformed her from accomplice to co-conspirator. 3 states, 5 aliases, 12 known victims, his attached note read. She's not learning from your mother. She's teaching her new tricks. I opened the files on my secure laptop, my jaw dropping as I read. Emily. Catherine Morrison, also known as Catherine. Emily Davis, K.E. Mitchell, Emma, Catherine Moore, and Katie Emerson. Each identity came with its own social security number, driver's license, and backstory. The woman celebrating her pregnancy at my mother's house was a professional con artist with warrants in Nevada and Florida. The Nevada case was particularly damning. She had targeted a retirement community, posing as a financial advisor, specializing in elder care. 16 residents had lost their savings before she disappeared. The Florida warrant involved identity theft from a wealthy widow she'd befriended at a grief support group. Total damages, $800,000. But the most shocking discovery was her real age. Emily wasn't my 28-year-old cousin. According to the FBI database, Marcus had somehow accessed she was 39 and had been running cons since college. The pregnancy announcement was likely another fabrication, a prop for whatever long game she was playing. My phone rang, Marcus breathless with excitement. Did you read it? She's been on the FBI's radar for 5 years. They call her the chameleon in their files. How did she become Emily? I asked, still processing. That's the beautiful part. Your actual cousin Emily died in a car accident in Australia 6 years ago. She was estranged from the family living abroad. This woman saw the obituary online, studied the family dynamics, and inserted herself during a vulnerable time. My mother knew. At first, probably not, but look at page 12. Credit report pulls from your mother's coffee shop, IP address, searching for Emily Catherine Morrison. She was vetting her, probably discovered the truth, and instead of exposing her, partnered with her. I finished. My God, Marcus, my mother didn't corrupt Emily. Emily professionalized my mother. The implications were staggering. Every family gathering for the past 5 years had included a wanted federal fugitive. Every photo, every celebration, every moment of manufactured family unity included someone who specialized in destroying families for profit. I pulled up the family photos from last night's party, studying Emily with new eyes. The way she held her supposedly pregnant belly was theatrical, practiced. Her tears during the gift opening seemed performed rather than felt. Even her styling was calculated, just familiar enough to seem like family, just different enough to avoid triggering specific memories of the real Emily. There's more, Marcus continued. I cross-referenced the coffee shop meetings with Emily's known activities. She's been teaching your mother advanced techniques. Synthetic identity fraud, phantom vendor schemes, institutional manipulation. Your mother's recent escalation isn't age or desperation, it's education. My secure email chimed. David from the support group had sent financial records showing mysterious payments to EMK Consulting from various family members' accounts over the past 3 years. Amounts ranging from $500 to $5,000, all traced back to the same offshore account. They're not just stealing, I realized. They're running a consultancy. Other family members are paying Emily for services they don't know they're buying. Phantom invoices, Marcus confirmed, probably inserted into small business accounts, estate payments, anywhere that processes multiple bills without scrutiny. Your mother provides the access, Emily provides the expertise. I started a new document mapping the intersection of my mother's family knowledge and Emily's technical skills. The combination was lethal. Intimate personal information weaponized through professional fraud techniques. Together, they could destroy lives with surgical precision. Another email arrived, this one from Bill. His forensic accountant contact had spent the night analyzing patterns and found something disturbing. The theft amounts weren't random. They were calculated to stay just below federal investigation thresholds, adjusted for inflation and jurisdiction changes. Someone was managing risk with algorithmic precision. Emily brought corporate-level fraud to mom-and-pop theft, I told Marcus. She turned my mother's kitchen table crimes into an enterprise. Which means, Marcus said slowly, when the FBI realizes the chameleon is operating locally embedded in a family structure, they'll come running, I finished. This isn't just family theft anymore. This is harboring a fugitive conspiracy to commit interstate fraud, potential RICO violations. My mother's not just a thief. She's part of Emily's network. I hung up and immediately began reorganizing my evidence. What had started as a family fraud case now had national implications. The FBI would be interested not just in recovering money, but in capturing one of their most wanted financial criminals. My laptop pinged with a video message from Patricia. She was at the local library using their computers for security. Julian, I've been thinking about the baby shower timing. Why now? Why make such a big production? I think they're planning to run. She was right. The escalation, the risk-taking, the blatant theft of my entire bonus, these weren't the actions of criminals planning to continue their operation. These were exit strategies, final scores before disappearing. I pulled up travel websites searching for flights booked under various combinations of Emily's aliases. Nothing direct, but a pattern emerged through connecting flights. San Jose to Mexico City, Mexico City to Sao Paulo to Buenos Aires. Classic fugitive routing paid for with prepaid credit cards purchased at, I checked the transaction locations, the coffee shop. They were running. The baby shower wasn't a celebration, but a farewell tour. The mysterious Costa Rica comments made sense now, misdirection from their actual destination. They'd stolen from one last round of victims knowing they'd be gone before consequences arrived. But they'd made one mistake. They'd assumed I'd be destroyed by the gaslighting too damaged to investigate coherently. They didn't know about the support group, the evidence we'd compiled, or most importantly, that Emily was already on federal radar. I called Marcus back. Emergency meeting, tonight. They're planning to run possibly within days. I'll alert everyone. Patricia's house again. No somewhere public. They might be watching her house now. The main library has private study rooms. Book one under a fake name. As I prepared for the meeting, I couldn't shake the image of Emily's satisfied smile from the party. She'd played the pregnant cousin, perfectly accepting gifts and congratulations while calculating exchange rates and extraction routes. The real Emily was dead in Australia, but her identity lived on as a mask for one of the FBI's most wanted. My mother had invited a viper into our nest, thinking she was mentoring a protege. Instead, she'd become a junior partner in a criminal enterprise that spanned the continent. The local family thief had gone international, and she probably didn't even realize she was now a small fish in Emily's very large pond. The meeting would be crucial. We had evidence of financial crimes, identity theft, and conspiracy. Now we needed to act before two predators disappeared into the South American shadows with millions in stolen family wealth. I backed up everything to multiple secure locations, then created a special file labeled for FBI Urgent. Inside went Emily's aliases, the warrant information, travel patterns, and most importantly, recent photos from the baby shower. The chameleon had been photographed extensively, her face captured from every angle by proud family members who had no idea they were documenting a federal fugitive. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Sweetheart, I'm worried about you. Emily and I are planning a spa day tomorrow. Would you like to join us? It might help with your stress." A spa day, code for final coordination before fleeing, probably. I typed back, "That sounds wonderful. I could use some relaxation." "Perfect. We'll pick you up at 10. And Julian, I'm proud of how you're handling your condition. Accepting help is the first step." I stared at her words, fury and determination mixing in equal measure. She thought she'd broken me, reduced me to a compliant victim who'd take pills and accept false diagnoses while she disappeared with my money. Tomorrow, I'd play the part. Broken daughter seeking healing at a spa. But tonight, 9 victims would gather in a library study room to plan the takedown of Sandra Montgomery and Emily the chameleon. My mother had taught me many things growing up. The importance of family, the value of money, the power of keeping up appearances. She'd never taught me what to do when family became the enemy, money became weapon, and appearances masked federal crimes. But I was a quick learner, and I had 8 teachers who'd survived her lessons. Class was in session. The library study room felt like a war room by 10 p.m. Marcus had brought a whiteboard, David supplied coffee, and Patricia coordinated laptops and phones into a makeshift command center. Bill's forensic accountant, a sharp-eyed woman named Janet, had driven 3 hours to join us. 17 accounts. I announced, projecting my findings onto the white wall. The money's been moving in a shell game for the past 48 hours. Small amounts, multiple transfers, classic laundering. Janet studied the pattern, her fingers tracing paths through the projected web of transaction. "They're not just moving it, they're converting it. See these purchases, cryptocurrency, gold certificates, portable wealth." "How portable?" Patricia asked. "Bearer bonds," Marcus read from his screen. 20,000 in bearer bonds purchased yesterday from a dealer in Chicago. Another 15,000 in cryptocurrency moved through 6 different exchanges. Eleanor, despite her age, was working a laptop with surprising skill. I found more. Jewelry purchases at estate sales paid in cash but picked up by Emily. High-end watches from private sellers. They're converting everything to untraceable assets. The scale of the operation became clearer with each discovery. This wasn't just theft anymore. It was a sophisticated extraction plan. Every dollar stolen was being transformed into something that could cross borders without detection. I can freeze some of it, I said, pulling up my banking interfaces. The accounts she accessed using my surgery authorization. I still have legal standing to dispute transactions. Do it, Janet urged. Every dollar we lock down is one they can't take with them. I began the process filing electronic disputes with timestamps, showing the transactions occurred while I was supposedly having a mental health crisis. The irony wasn't lost on me, using my mother's own gaslighting narrative against her. Within minutes, $15,000 in pending transfers were frozen. The bank's fraud departments, triggered by the unusual activity patterns, began their own investigations. Red flags appeared across multiple institutions. Got something, David announced. Costa Rica was definitely misdirection. I found property purchases in Argentina. 3 properties all bought in the last year under shell companies. The paperwork traces back to our coffee shop IP address. Bill pulled up satellite images. These aren't just homes. Look at the security, the isolation. These are compound-style safe houses. They've been planning this for at least a year. My phone buzzed. A notification from one of the credit cards my mother had opened in my name. Someone was attempting a large purchase at an airport duty-free shop. I traced the location. Dallas, International Terminal D International Departures. They're moving, I announced. One of them is at DFW Airport right now. The room erupted into action. Marcus called his FBI contact while I began emergency procedures to lock down every account I could access. Janet worked her network alerting financial crimes units across 3 states. Patricia coordinated communication between team members. The FBI wants everything, Marcus reported. They're mobilizing a team, but they need the Emily identification confirmed. They've been hunting the chameleon for 5 years. I sent the baby shower photos, multiple angles of Emily's face, the warrants I'd found, and her connection to local crimes. The response was immediate. Positive identification. Emily Catherine Morrison was confirmed as Catherine Davis wanted in connection with elder fraud across 7 states. There's a problem, Eleanor said quietly. Sandra's not at the airport. I have a cousin who works TSA. Only Emily went through security. She's traveling alone. The betrayal shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. My mother, the architect of family unity, had been abandoned by her partner. Emily was cutting her losses, taking what she could carry, and leaving my mother to face the consequences alone. Check the house, I said urgently. If Emily ran without her, Bill was already pulling up traffic cameras near my parents' house. Multiple police cars converged there an hour ago. Lights, no sirens. They're already there. I tried calling my father's cell. No answer. My mother's phone went straight to voicemail. The family home that had hosted last night's celebration was now a crime scene. Wait. Janet held up her hand, studying her screen intently. The money's still moving. Someone's actively transferring funds right now, but not from the airport. The IP address is the coffee shop. My mother. Abandoned by her partner, probably aware of the police presence, she'd gone to her safe space. The coffee shop where she'd planned dozens of thefts over designer lattes and criminal conspiracy. I'm going, I announced, grabbing my keys. That's dangerous, Patricia warned. She's cornered, desperate. She's also my mother, I said, surprising myself with the emotion in my voice. And she has answers I need. Marcus insisted on coming with me, his legal expertise a comforting backup, and we drove through empty streets, the coffee shop glowing in the distance like a lighthouse for the morally shipwrecked. Through the window, I could see her. My mother sat at her usual table laptop, open and fingers flying across the keyboard. She looked smaller than I remembered, older, her perfect party facade replaced by desperate determination. I entered alone, the bell above the door chiming our shared past. She looked up, and for a moment I saw not the criminal mastermind, but the woman who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd stayed up all night when I had the flu, who'd cried at my college graduation. Emily left, she said simply, took the bearer bonds and the cryptocurrency passwords, 23 years of work, and she played me like I played everyone else. Why, I asked, sitting across from her. Why did she leave, or why did I do it? She laughed bitterly. Both answers are the same. Opportunity. She saw an opportunity in me, just like I saw opportunity in family trust. The FBI is coming, I told her. Emily's been identified. They know about Argentina, about the money, about everything. She nodded, unsurprised. I figured as much when the police showed up at home. Your father? He didn't know. I need you to know that. He never knew. How could he not know? Because I was careful. Because he trusted me. Because who suspects their wife of systematically robbing their extended family? She closed her laptop slowly. I've transferred what I could back to the victims, not all of it. Emily took too much. But what I could access. Check your accounts. I pulled out my phone, logging into my banking app. The checking account that had shown zero now displayed $12,000. Not everything, but a significant return. It doesn't fix what you did, I said. No, it doesn't, but it's what I can do now. She met my eyes, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Genuine remorse. I told myself I was creating family moments, bringing everyone together. Really, I was stealing their futures to fund my fantasies of being the perfect matriarch. What about Robert Chen? Her face went white. How do you... Was it murder? No. The vehemence was real. His brakes failed. I swear to God, Julian, I'm a thief, but not a killer. I've done terrible things, but not that. Blue lights filled the windows. The FBI had arrived along with local police. My mother stood smoothing her skirt with habitual precision. For what it's worth, she said, I'm proud of you. You did what none of the others could. You fought back. You won. Nobody won, I replied, watching agents enter the coffee shop. We all lost the moment you chose money over family. They arrested her quietly, professionally. No dramatic scene, no resistance. Just a woman in her 60s being led away from the site of her criminal enterprise, leaving behind a daughter she'd raised and robbed in equal measure. Marcus met me outside, offering silent support as we watched the cars pull away. In the distance, news vans were already arriving, drawn by the scanner chatter of a massive financial fraud arrest. Emily, I asked. Caught at the gate. Apparently, she tried to board with a fake passport. The FBI was waiting. He paused. The money she took is gone, though, converted to cryptocurrency and scattered across anonymous wallets, maybe a third of the total theft. A third. Hundreds of thousands of dollars vanished into the digital ether with the woman who'd pretended to be my cousin. My mother, the small-town thief, had been outplayed by a professional who saw her as just another mark. We returned to the library where the others waited. The mood was subdued despite the victory. Justice had been served, but at the cost of confirming our worst fears about family trust and the price of misplaced loyalty. Final tally, Janet announced. 1.8 million recovered through frozen accounts and return transfers. 500,000 permanently lost to Emily's cryptocurrency scheme. 400,000 peso in property and assets that will go through civil forfeiture. And 2 careers in financial crime ended, Marcus added. The FBI agent said this was their largest family-based fraud scheme in a decade. Patricia raised her coffee cup. To the survivors, to the truth, to the end of Sandra Montgomery's reign. We toasted with paper cups and lukewarm coffee, 9 people bound by shared trauma and eventual triumph. Outside the city slept on unaware that a decades-long criminal enterprise had just ended in a suburban coffee shop. My phone showed 17 missed calls from relatives who'd been at the party. Tomorrow would bring questions, accusations, and the messy work of rebuilding family trust. But tonight, we'd stopped the bleeding. The money mattered. Of course it did. But what mattered more was the validation, the proof that we hadn't imagined our losses, hadn't fabricated our pain. We were victims, then investigators, and finally victors. Even if victory tasted bittersweet and cost us the illusion of family unity, we'd never really had. 3 a.m. brought an insistent knocking at my apartment door. Through the peephole, I saw my father still wearing the same clothes from the party 2 nights ago. His face was haggard, aged a decade in 48 hours. In his hands were two banker's boxes overflowing with papers. "I know you're awake," he said quietly. "I can see the light. Please, Julian, I need to talk to my daughter." I opened the door and he practically collapsed inside the boxes, spilling documents across my entryway. Financial statements, legal papers, and photographs scattered like evidence of a life exploding. "She's gone," he said unnecessarily. "They took her. FBI, local police people in suits who wouldn't answer my questions. Our house is a crime scene." "Dad, I'm sorry. Are you—" His voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. "Because from what I'm hearing, you orchestrated this. You gathered victims, compiled evidence, brought down federal agents on your mother. She stole $23,000 from me. She's been stealing from family for over 2 decades." He laughed, a broken sound. 23,000, try 200,000 from me, from us, from our retirement, our savings, our future. I helped him to the couch, then knelt to gather the scattered papers. What I saw made my investigation seem amateur by comparison. Remortgage documents, equity lines of credit, investment account statements showing systematic withdrawals, all with my father's forged signature. "When did you find out?" I asked. "6 months ago. Maybe longer, but I didn't want to see it." He rubbed his face, exhaustion evident in every line. "Started with small things, charges I didn't remember, withdrawals I couldn't explain. I thought I was getting forgetful. Early dementia runs in my family." "She was drugging you," I said, remembering what we'd discovered. "Sleeping medication to make you sign things." His head snapped up. "What?" I showed him the evidence from our investigation. The prescription bottles in her name for medications he supposedly took. The correlation between large withdrawals and his confused periods. The forged signatures that matched his handwriting but were signed on documents dated during his business trips. "My God," he whispered. "She told me I was sick. Made doctor's appointments, got me tested for Alzheimer's. I spent months terrified I was losing my mind when really she was stealing it," I finished. He pulled out a folder from the box, hands shaking. "I hired a private investigator. Paid cash, met in secret like I was the criminal. Look what he found." The investigator's report was thorough. My mother had opened 14 credit lines in their joint names, maxed out each one, and been making minimum payments from their checking account to avoid detection. Total debt $340,000. Their house, paid off for a decade, now carried a mortgage for 80% of its value. "We were supposed to retire next year," he said. "Travel, see the world, enjoy what we'd built. Instead, I'll be working until I die to pay off debt I didn't create." "The FBI will freeze the assets," I assured him. "You'll be able to prove fraud, get some of it discharged." "Will I? Because according to the police, I'm either a victim or an accomplice. They can't decide which. 34 years of marriage, and I have to prove I didn't know my wife was a criminal mastermind." From the second box, he pulled out photo albums. Our family history carefully curated by my mother. Every picture showed her at the center, the orchestrator of happiness. Now I wondered how many of those moments were funded by someone else's misery. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a cruise vacation from 5 years ago. "She said she won a contest, radio call-in thing. I was so proud of her luck." He flipped pages. "This kitchen renovation insurance settlement from a fender bender that I never saw happen. The new car, early inheritance from a relative I'd never heard of who supposedly died in Maine." Each luxury, each upgrade to their lifestyle corresponded to the timeline of thefts we'd documented. My father hadn't benefited knowingly, but he'd benefited nonetheless. The realization was destroying him. "There's more," he said, pulling out a manila envelope. "The investigator found this in her office at the community center. She kept trophies. Inside were driver's licenses, all with my mother's photo, but different names. Social security cards that shouldn't exist. Birth certificates for people who were never born. My mother hadn't just stolen money, she'd stolen identities wholesale. She was planning to disappear, I realized. These are escape identities built over years. The investigator thinks she's been planning since before we got married. Some of these documents are 40 years old. I fell in love with a woman who didn't exist. I made him coffee while we sorted through the evidence. Each document told a story of deception layered so deep that truth became archaeological. My mother had constructed an entire false life with my father and her children as unwitting props. "Why didn't you say something when you started suspecting?" I asked. "Because I loved her, because I thought I was wrong, because after 34 years you don't want to believe your entire life is built on lies." He met my eyes. "Why didn't you come to me when she stole from you?" "Because she made me think I was crazy. Because she isolated each victim. Because she was my mother." We sat in silence, two victims of the same woman comparing wounds across a generation gap. The coffee grew cold between us. "The police want me to testify," he said eventually. "Character witness for the prosecution." "How can I testify about her character when I never knew who she really was?" "You knew who she was to you," I offered. "That was real, even if nothing else was." Was it every "I love you" every anniversary, every moment I thought we were building something together? Was any of it real? Or was I just her longest con, the cover story that made everything else possible? His phone rang. My Aunt Catherine, my mother's sister who lived across the country. He put it on speaker. "Thomas, I just saw the news. Is it true Sandra's been arrested for fraud?" "It's true," he confirmed. "Thank God," Catherine said, surprising us both. "I've been waiting 25 years for this call." She destroyed my credit, took my inheritance, and convinced everyone I was an alcoholic who couldn't be trusted with money. I moved across the country to escape her reach. Another victim, another family member written out of our history by my mother's lies. The network of damage spread wider with each revelation. After Catherine hung up, my father stood to leave. "I need to figure out what's left, what's real, what's salvageable. The investigator thinks I might be able to keep the house if I prove I was drugged during the refinancing." "Where will you stay tonight?" "Hotel. Can't go home while they're processing evidence. Funny thing is, I'll have to use cash. All the credit cards are frozen." He attempted a smile. 40 years of perfect credit gone overnight. At the door, he turned back. "You did the right thing, Julian. I'm proud of you for fighting back. I just wish that it hadn't been necessary," I finished. "That I'd been strong enough to see it myself. To protect you and the others, to be the husband and father I thought I was instead of the mark I turned out to be." After he left, I sat surrounded by the evidence of my mother's double life. Two banker's boxes that revealed decades of deception, identities that never existed, and a family built on lies so fundamental that truth became foreign. My phone showed messages from the victim support group checking in after the arrests. Patricia, Marcus, Bill, Eleanor, and the others who'd found strength in shared pain. We'd won, technically. The criminals were caught, some money recovered, the scheme exposed. But victory felt hollow when it came with the realization that my father, the one parent I thought I could trust, had been the biggest victim of all, not just financially, but emotionally. He'd lost not just money, but his entire understanding of his life. The sun was rising by the time I finished documenting the new evidence. Somewhere, my mother sat in federal custody, her carefully constructed world finally collapsed. Emily was in another cell, probably already planning her next con. And scattered across the city and beyond were the victims counting costs that went far beyond dollars. My father was right about one thing. Some debts could never be repaid. Some truths cost more than the lies they replaced. And some victories felt indistinguishable from defeat. The FBI field office in downtown occupied 3 floors of a gleaming federal building. At 7 a.m. Monday morning, I sat in Conference Room C with Marcus, Patricia, and Janet, surrounded by bankers' boxes of evidence. Across from us, Special Agent Diana Chen and her team reviewed our documentation with expressions that shifted between impressed and horrified. 412 individual thefts, Agent Chen read from her tablet. spanning 23 years across 4 states. Total documented losses of $3.8 million. She looked up. This is the most comprehensive victim-compiled case I've seen in 15 years with the Bureau. Marcus slid another folder across the table. We've identified 16 additional victims who haven't come forward yet. Some are deceased, others are afraid or ashamed. The real total is likely over 5 million. Tell me about the identity cells, Agent Chen prompted, focusing on me. I pulled up the encrypted files on my laptop. My mother didn't just steal money. She harvested personal information from every family gathering, every shared document, every moment of trust. Then she and Emily sold packages on dark web marketplaces. The screen showed marketplace listings I'd tracked down through digital forensics. Complete identity packages including SSN birth certificates, medical history, financial records, even family photos for authenticity. Priced between $500 and $5,000 depending on the victim's credit score and financial standing. Patricia added her discovery. We found 43 family members with mysterious credit inquiries they never authorized. Some have accounts they didn't open, debts they didn't incur. The identity theft might be bigger than the direct financial theft. Agent Chen's partner, Agent Rodriguez, whistled low. This goes way beyond wire fraud. We're looking at a RICO case here. Organized crime interstate commerce conspiracy charges that could mean 25 to life. There's more, Janet said, producing a new set of documents. We've traced connections to 3 other family fraud rings. Emily wasn't just working with Sandra. She was running similar operations with families in Texas, Arizona, and Oregon. Sandra was just her latest franchise. The room fell silent as the full scope became clear. This wasn't a family scandal anymore. It was a national criminal network that used family trust as its primary weapon. Show them Robert Chen's file, Patricia urged quietly. I hesitated, then pulled up the folder we'd compiled on my mother's most suspicious connection. Robert Chen died in a car accident in 2003. Single car crash brake failure, no witnesses. He was planning to report my mother to the FBI for stealing from his tech startup. Agent Chen, no relation despite the shared surname, leaned forward. You have evidence of tampering. No, but we have this. I showed them Robert's journal entries provided by his widow. He documented meetings with my mother in the days before his death. She knew his daily routes, his car maintenance schedule, everything. The last entry mentions she suggested he take a specific mountain road to clear his head. The same road where he died, Marcus added. His widow also confirmed that crucial evidence about the theft disappeared from their house during the funeral reception. Guess who organized the reception? Agent Rodriguez made notes. We'll need to coordinate with cold case units if there's even a possibility of homicide. We've found 3 other suspicious deaths. Patricia interrupted, her teacher's precision evident in her organized files. All family members who threatened to expose her. Heart attack at 52, drowning in a shallow pool, and another car accident. Each one was investigating theft and each died before they could report it. The agents exchanged glances. The case was expanding beyond financial crimes into potentially darker territory. Agent Chen called for additional resources, and within an hour, the conference room filled with specialists in financial crime, cybersecurity, and cold cases. I presented the technical evidence, walking them through IP addresses, digital footprints, and the sophisticated methods Emily had taught my mother. The FBI's cybercrime specialist looked genuinely impressed by the cryptocurrency laundering scheme. They converted approximately 400,000 to various cryptocurrencies, I explained, showing the blockchain analysis I'd conducted. But Emily made one mistake. She used a wallet that had been flagged in another investigation. We can trace 60% of the converted funds. Can we recover it? Agent Chen asked. Possibly, if we move fast. The wallets haven't been emptied yet, which suggests Emily's arrest disrupted their exit plan. Patricia presented the victim testimonies she'd collected, each one notarized and verified. Eleanor, despite her age, had provided the most detailed historical account, showing patterns dating back to when my mother was in her 30s. The early thefts were small, Patricia explained. A few hundred here, 1,000 there. She was learning testing boundaries. Emily's arrival 5 years ago triggered the escalation. Professional techniques applied to existing family access created a perfect storm. Janet, the forensic accountant, presented her analysis of the money flows. What's remarkable is the discipline. They maintained normal spending patterns even while stealing millions. No sudden lifestyle changes, no obvious red flags. The money was systematically extracted and prepared for a long-planned exit. Speaking of which, Agent Rodriguez said, Emily's talking. The room froze. Emily, the professional con artist, had flipped. She wants a deal, he continued. Full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. She's offering information on 12 other family-based fraud operations nationwide. Apparently, there's an entire underground network of people who specialize in exploiting family trust. Don't trust her, I warned. She's played grieving widow, pregnant cousin, financial advisor. Federal witness is just another role. We're aware, Agent Chen assured me, but her information is checking out. She's provided names, methods, contact protocols. This is bigger than any of us imagined. Marcus voiced what we were all thinking. What does this mean for Sandra's case? Your mother is looking at federal charges for wire fraud, identity, theft, money, laundering, conspiracy, and potentially murder if the cold cases reveal tampering. With Emily testifying against her, we're talking about life without parole. Life without parole. My mother, who'd orchestrated family gatherings with military precision, would spend her remaining years in federal prison. The magnitude of consequence finally hit home. There's something else, I said, pulling out a final piece of evidence. In my mother's safety deposit box, which I had legal access to as a co-signer, I found this. I placed a leather journal on the table. Inside, in my mother's meticulous handwriting, was a record of every theft, every victim, every method. But more than that, it contained her rationale, her justifications, her twisted philosophy of family and money. Agent Chen read aloud, Family is currency, love is leverage, trust is a resource to be mined. Those who give it freely deserve to lose it. The words hung in the air like a poison. This wasn't a woman driven to crime by desperation or circumstance. This was someone who'd built an entire worldview around exploitation, who saw family bonds as weaknesses to exploit, rather than connections to cherish. She wrote profiles on everyone. I continued showing pages of detailed analysis. Psychological assessments, financial vulnerabilities, emotional weak points. She studied us like a predator studies prey. My profile was particularly detailed. Predicted responses to various scenarios, notes on my trusting nature, observations about my relationship with money. She'd been planning to rob me since I was in college, waiting for the right moment. The meeting continued for 3 more hours. We provided passwords to encrypted files, contact information for additional victims, and context for financial patterns that might otherwise seem innocent. The FBI team grew from 4 agents to 12 as the scope expanded. Finally, Agent Chen closed her tablet. This is exceptional work. Honestly, you've done half our job for us. The conviction rate on cases with this level of victim documentation is nearly 100%. What happens now? Patricia asked. Now we build an airtight federal case. We'll need all of you to testify, possibly multiple times. It won't be easy. Defense attorneys will try to paint you as vindictive family members. Are you prepared for that? We all nodded. After surviving the actual crimes and gaslighting facing lawyers seemed manageable. As we left the federal building, Marcus pulled me aside. You know Emily's testimony will destroy your mother. She'll reveal every detail, every crime, every victim we haven't found yet. It's going to be brutal. I know, I admitted, but brutal truth is better than comfortable lies. We've lived with those long enough. Patricia hugged me before getting in her car. You did it, Julian. You broke the cycle. 23 years of theft and silence ended because you refused to be gaslit into compliance. Driving home, I thought about the leather journal in evidence. My mother had written profiles of everyone studying us for weaknesses, but she'd missed something crucial in her assessment of me. Yes, I was trusting. Yes, I was family oriented. Yes, I believed in giving people chances. But I was also a fraud investigator who'd learned from the best. And when pushed too far, when robbed not just of money, but of truth itself, I'd proven capable of dismantling everything she'd built. Her greatest theft had created her most dangerous enemy. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't cost so much. Tuesday morning brought an unexpected call that changed everything. Agent Chen's voice was tight with urgency when I answered. Julian, we need you here immediately. Bring Marcus and any digital evidence you haven't submitted. We've uncovered something massive. The FBI field office was buzzing with activity when we arrived. Agents moved between rooms with purpose, wheeling boxes of evidence and huddling over computer screens. The conference room from yesterday had been transformed into a command center, with maps, photos, and connection charts covering every wall. What's happening? Marcus asked as we were ushered inside. Agent Rodriguez looked grim. Emily's cooperation led us to encrypted servers. What we found changes the entire scope of this investigation. Your mother wasn't just part of a fraud ring, she was unknowingly helping fund domestic terrorism. The words didn't compute. That's impossible. She's a thief, not a terrorist. Agent Chen pulled up files on the main screen. The cryptocurrency Emily was managing. It wasn't just for their retirement. She was washing money for extremist groups using family fraud operations as collection points. Small amounts from hundreds of victims, aggregated and converted, then passed on as clean donations. My legs gave out and I sank into a chair. Marcus gripped my shoulder as we absorbed the implications. My mother, who'd spent decades perfecting family theft, had been a tiny cog in a massive criminal machine she probably didn't even know existed. Emily knew, Patricia asked, having arrived moments after us. Emily orchestrated it, Agent Rodriguez confirmed. She's not just a con artist. She's been under surveillance by Homeland Security for 3 years. We think she's connected to 12 different fraud operations that unknowingly fund various illegal enterprises. The scale was staggering. Family reunions across America had become unwitting fundraising events for activities too dark to contemplate. Trust converted to cryptocurrency, love laundered into anonymous donations, holiday gatherings, generating revenue for people who despised everything those families stood for. Why didn't you arrest her sooner? I demanded. We were building a comprehensive case, Agent Chen explained, following the money up the chain. Your investigation gave us the final pieces. Direct evidence of her methods confirmed victims willing to testify, and most importantly, her mistake in getting arrested at a civilian level. She got sloppy because she thought your mother was just another mark. Special Agent David Kim from Financial Crimes joined us, spreading new documents across the table. We've identified 87 family fraud operations across 16 states. Each one thought they were independent criminals. None knew they were franchisees in Emily's network. Like my mother, I said quietly. Your mother was middle management without knowing it, Agent Kim confirmed. Emily would identify skilled family thieves, offer to teach them advanced techniques, then use their operations to wash money. The local criminals got a cut. Emily got clean funds, and the end recipients got untraceable donations. Marcus pulled up legal precedents on his tablet. This elevates charges significantly. We're not talking 25 to life anymore. Under terrorism enhancement statutes, life without possibility of parole. Agent Rodriguez finished. For everyone involved, knowingly or not. I thought of my father in his hotel room trying to salvage his finances and sanity. My mother didn't know. She's greedy and cruel, but she's not a terrorist supporter. Ignorance isn't a defense when the crime reaches this level, Agent Chen said gently, but it might factor into sentencing if she cooperates fully, if she provides everything she knows about Emily's operations. Patricia spoke up. The other victims need to know. They think this is just about getting their money back. Absolutely not, Agent Kim said sharply. This investigation is now classified at the highest levels. Anyone who's already given testimony is bound by national security restrictions. No discussing this outside these walls. The weight of secrecy settled over us. Our family tragedy had become a national security issue. The crime that started with a $23,000 theft now connected to networks that threatened the entire country. "We need your help," Agent Chen said, focusing on me. "Your technical skills, your evidence compilation, your ability to think like both investigator and victim. We're offering you a consultant position with the task force." "I have a job," I said automatically. "We've already spoken with your employer. They're willing to grant an indefinite leave of absence. This is a matter of national importance, Julian. Your country needs you." The irony was breathtaking. My mother's crimes had led to a job offer from the FBI. Her theft had opened doors I'd never imagined walking through. "What about the others?" I asked. "The victim support group. They'll be protected and compensated, but their active involvement ends here. This is too dangerous for civilians. You're different. You have the skills we need and the inside knowledge of how these family operations work." Marcus squeezed my shoulder. "Take it. This is bigger than getting our money back now." I thought about the leather journal in evidence, my mother's profiles of family members as currency to be exploited. Now, the FBI was asking me to profile entire networks of families being used the same way. "I'll do it," I decided, "but I have conditions. Full protection for all identified victims, recovery of as much stolen money as possible, and when this is over, the truth comes out. Families deserve to know how their trust was weaponized." Agent Chen smiled for the first time. "Welcome to the task force. We'll start with Emily's other operations. She's identified teams in Dallas, Phoenix, and Portland, each one thinking they're independent, each one feeding the machine." The next hours blurred together. Security clearances, briefings, introductions to specialists I'd only heard about in professional conferences. The small conference room became my new office, equipped with secure systems that made my home setup look amateur. Emily's interrogation videos played on one screen while I analyzed patterns. She was different here, no longer the pregnant cousin or grieving family member. This was her real face, calculating, brilliant, and utterly without conscience. She discussed destroying families like others discussed weather. "The key," she explained in one recording, "is finding the Sandra Montgomerys, natural family predators who think small. Teach them to think bigger, give them tools, then sit back and collect. They're so grateful for the mentorship they never ask where the money really goes." My mother had been groomed as carefully as she'd groomed her victims, the teacher becoming the student, the predator becoming prey. Emily had probably laughed at her small-town ambitions, even while praising her natural talent for theft. "Your mother's arrest triggered panic," Agent Kim told me. "We're seeing fund transfers, identity changes, people running. You gave us a gift by acting when you did. If they'd completed their exit plan, millions more would have funded terrible things," I finished. The victims' group chat buzzed with confusion about the sudden federal intensity. I crafted careful responses bound by new security oaths. Yes, the investigation was expanding. No, I couldn't share details. Yes, they would get justice. No, it wouldn't be quick. That night, I worked until 3 a.m. mapping connections between fraud operations Emily had identified. Each family cluster represented dozens of victims, hundreds of thousands stolen, countless trust destroyed. But now I saw the bigger picture, a web of exploitation that turned America's families into unwitting ATMs for extremism. My phone rang, a blocked number. "Don't hang up," my mother's voice said. "I get one call and I'm using it on you. You're calling from federal custody." They offered me a deal. Full cooperation for the possibility of protective custody instead of general population. They say Emily was using me, that I'm in danger from people I didn't even know existed. "Are you going to take it?" A long pause. "I destroyed our family for money I'll never spend to impress a woman who was using me to fund monsters. Yes, I'm taking the deal. But Julian, I need you to know something." "What?" "The journal they found, I wrote those profiles because I was fascinated by people's vulnerabilities. But yours was different. I wrote about your trust like it was a weakness, but really I was jealous." You could believe in family even after seeing its worst sides. That's not weakness. That's strength I never had. The call ended, leaving me staring at connection charts that linked my personal tragedy to a national threat. My mother would cooperate, provide intelligence, possibly help unravel Emily's network. It wouldn't redeem her, but it might reduce the damage. Agent Chen appeared with coffee and a new assignment. Phoenix team just went dark. We need you to analyze their patterns, predict their next moves. You ready for this? I thought about the party 3 days ago, my mother raising a toast with my stolen money while Emily smiled her false smile. Now I sat in an FBI command center hunting the very networks they'd served. I'm ready, I said, and meant it. The investigation that started with a birthday banner and missing bonus had evolved into something unimaginable. But then again, my mother had taught me early that family could surprise you. She just never specified whether those surprises would be good or evil. Thursday evening, I stood in the FBI's mobile command center wearing a wire taped to my ribs and a designer outfit purchased with government funds. Through the tinted windows, I could see Emily's safe house, a mansion in the suburbs where she'd agreed to meet her network coordinators for an emergency session. Remember, Agent Chen's voice crackled through my earpiece. You're Sandra's daughter, desperate and angry. You want in on the network to recoup your losses. Emily expects family members to turn predator when pushed. Use that. The last 3 days had been intense preparation. Emily's partial cooperation had been a ruse. She'd fed the FBI just enough truth to seem valuable while secretly alerting her network through coded messages. But the agency's cryptographers had cracked her system, revealing a gathering plan for tonight. 12 family fraud operators from across the country, all converging to divide Emily's territory and cryptocurrency holdings. They thought she was dead or disappeared. Instead, she was in protective custody, having cut a deal to testify while simultaneously organizing her criminal empire's continuation. Marcus is in position at the rear, Agent Rodriguez reported. Patricia's covering the neighbor angle. All teams ready. I stepped out of the van, my heels clicking on the pavement with false confidence. The wire felt heavy under my silk blouse, the recording devices hidden in my jewelry, weighing more than gold ever could. 3 days ago, I'd been a victim. Tonight, I was bait. The door opened before I could knock. A woman I'd never seen before studied me with predatory eyes. You're Sandra's daughter, Emily said you might come. Emily's in federal custody, I replied, letting bitterness color my voice. Or so they want us to think. I know better. I know she's running things from inside. The woman smiled, stepping aside. Smart girl. Emily said you inherited your mother's instincts, but with better technical skills. Come in. The house reeked of wealth stolen from others. Every piece of art, every designer furnishing, every carefully placed luxury item represented someone's retirement college fund or life savings. I recognized the sick feeling from my mother's party. Beauty built on betrayal. 11 people occupied the living room, each one radiating the particular confidence of successful criminals. They ranged from a grandmother type who looked like she baked cookies to a young man who couldn't be older than 25. All had the same calculating eyes. Julian Montgomery, the first woman announced, daughter of Sandra, who just cost us significant revenue streams. She thinks she can fill her mother's position. My mother was small time, I said, channeling weeks of rage into dismissive arrogance. She thought stealing family money was the endgame. I know better. I've seen Emily's real books. That got their attention. Several leaned forward as I pulled out a tablet loaded with false data the FBI had prepared. Numbers that looked real, patterns that suggested knowledge, just enough truth mixed with fiction to be believed. Emily showed me the cryptocurrency wallets. I lied smoothly. Before her arrest, she knew they were closing in, wanted someone with technical skills to preserve the network. My mother was analog. I'm digital native. Prove it, the grandmother type demanded. I connected my tablet to their smart TV displaying blockchain analyses that showed money flows they recognized. The FBI tech team was feeding me real-time data, making it look like I had access Emily had granted. Phoenix operation, I narrated, pointing to transaction patterns, transferred out Tuesday night, Portland followed Wednesday, but the wallets aren't empty. Emily built in failsafe secondary addresses only she and I know about. Bullshit, the young man said. Emily didn't trust anyone that much. She didn't trust me, I agreed. She trusted my hate for my mother. Properly channeled rage is more reliable than greed. She knew I'd burn Sandra's world down if given the chance. Through my earpiece, Agent Chen whispered, "Beautiful. Keep them talking. Teams are moving into position." The first woman, clearly the alpha in Emily's absence, circled me slowly. "Let's say we believe you. What's your proposal?" "Full network integration. I handle the technical side. Cryptocurrency, digital, security, identity, manufacturing. You all continue your family operations. Emily's infrastructure remains intact, but with better operational security. The FBI thinks they've won. Let them arrest the old generation while we build something better." "And your mother," someone asked, "is learning that federal prison doesn't have visiting hours for daughters she robbed. Whatever happens to her is justice as far as I'm concerned." The room's tension shifted. I'd passed some test, crossed some line from suspect to potential ally. The grandmother pulled out a ledger. Physical, handwritten, probably invisible to digital forensics. "Emily kept the real books on paper," she explained. "Old school protection against hackers. Each of us runs between 10 and 20 family operations. Small cells, usually 3 to 5 families per operator. Total network value, 14 million in active operations." I finished, having memorized the FBI's estimates, with another 6 million in cryptocurrency reserves, plus the identity packages, the international connections, the money laundering infrastructure. "You have done your homework," the alpha woman admitted, "but knowing numbers isn't the same as running operations. What makes you think you can handle Emily's role?" I smiled, cold and calculating. "Because I've spent 3 days inside FBI headquarters as a consultant. I know their task force structure, their evidence, even chains their next moves. They think I'm helping them. Really, I'm documenting their weaknesses." The lie rolled off my tongue with disturbing ease. Around the room, criminals who'd destroyed hundreds of families nodded approval. I was speaking their language. Betrayal, exploitation, the weaponization of trust. "Show us," the young man challenged. "Give us something actionable." I pretended to consider, then pulled up the photos on my tablet. Staged shots the FBI had prepared. "They're planning raids tomorrow night, Portland, Phoenix, and Dallas. Synchronized arrests at 8 p.m. Pacific. Anyone still in those cities?" The room erupted in motion. Phones appeared, texts, flu warnings spread through the criminal network. In my earpiece, Agent Chen confirmed, "All communications intercepted. We're mapping their entire warning system." "This changes things," the alpha woman said. "Julian, you may have just saved dozens of operations." "I'm not interested in saving," I replied. "I'm interested in evolution." Emily's model was good, but limited. She thought small. Family, fraud funding, single revenue streams. I'm thinking bigger. Corporate infiltration using family credentials. Government contract fraud through identity networks. Why steal thousands when we can steal millions? The grandmother laughed, a sound like ice cracking. "Oh, I like her. She's got vision," Emily lacked. Emily was content being rich. This one wants an empire. "Teams in position," Agent Rodriguez reported. "All exits covered. Await your signal." But I wasn't done. The FBI wanted arrests, but I wanted something more. Complete network exposure. "There's one condition. I need to know everyone. Every operator, every family cell, every connection." Emily compartmentalized too much. That's why her arrest hurt operations. Full transparency or I walk. The criminals exchanged glances. I was asking for their most protected secret, the complete network structure. Names, locations, methods, everything Emily had kept fragmented to protect the whole. "That's significant trust for a first meeting," the alpha woman said carefully. "Trust." I laughed, channeling every moment of my mother's betrayal. "I don't want trust. I want mutual assured destruction. Everyone knows everything, so nobody can betray anybody without burning themselves." Emily's mistake was thinking she could stay above it all. I'm proposing we all get equally dirty. The young man stood suddenly. I'm out. This feels wrong. She's too eager, too prepared. Sit down, Marcus, the alpha commanded. My blood froze. Marcus. Same name as my cousin in the victim support group. In my earpiece, Agent Chen hissed, Steady. Coincidence. Stay in character. But something in the young man's eyes triggered recognition. The way he held his shoulders, a familiar gesture, the shape of his jaw under different lighting. Oh my God! I breathed genuine shock, breaking through my act. Marcus Chen. He went pale. How do you... Julian? The room exploded into chaos. The grandmother pulled a gun, the alpha woman shouted orders, and through it all I stood frozen staring at my cousin's husband. The one who'd supposedly lost everything in their divorce, who'd joined our victim support group, who'd helped coordinate evidence against my mother. Now, Agent Chen screamed in my earpiece. The front door burst in. Flashbang grenades detonated, filling the room with blinding light and deafening sound. I dropped to the floor as federal agents swarmed in weapons-drawn voices commanding compliance. Through the chaos, I saw Marcus. Not my cousin Marcus, but his ex-husband, the one we'd all believed was a victim, trying to flee. An agent tackled him, zip ties securing his wrists, as he screamed about entrapment and lawyers. The grandmother had dropped her weapon, hands were raised in surrender. The alpha woman was face down, an agent's knee on her back. One by one, Emily's lieutenants were arrested, their criminal empire collapsing in a suburban living room. Clear voices reported from various rooms. 12 in custody, securing evidence. Agent Chen pulled me to my feet, checking for injuries. You okay? That was incredible work until... Marcus Chen, I said numbly. He was in our victim support group. He helped us build the case. He had access to everything. The implications hit like a truck. Our secure meetings, our evidence compilation, our planned strategies, all compromised. Emily hadn't just been running game from custody. She'd had an inside man from the very beginning. We need to warn the others, I said urgently. If Marcus was feeding them information, already on it. Agent Rodriguez confirmed his phone to his ear. All victim group members being moved to secure locations. Jesus, he played the victim perfectly. I thought back to Marcus's performance. The tears over his stolen identity, the rage at being gaslit, the careful documentation of his ex-husband's crimes. All of it fake. He'd infiltrated our support group to monitor our investigation, feeding intelligence back to Emily's network. The divorce was probably staged, I realized. A way to position him as a victim, get inside our group. He knew everything. Patricia's documentation, my technical work, everyone's addresses. Agent Chen guided me outside, where the mobile command center waited. Inside screens showed the arrest operation from multiple angles. 12 of Emily's top operators in custody, millions in stolen cryptocurrency frozen, and hundreds of family fraud operations exposed. You did it, she said. This is the biggest takedown of a family fraud network in FBI history. Emily's testimony was partial. She held back the key players. Without your work tonight, they'd have scattered. But I felt no triumph. Marcus Chen's betrayal cut deeper than my mother's theft. He'd sat in our circle, shared our pain, helped plan our justice. Every moment had been a lie, every sympathetic word calculated manipulation. How deep does this go? I asked. How many more Marcus Chens are out there? That's what we're going to find out, Agent Chen promised. Every arrested operator will be interrogated, every connection traced. Emily thought she was smart, but she just gave us her entire network's leadership. My phone buzzed. A text from the real Marcus, my cousin. FBI says we're compromised, being moved to safe house. My ex was part of it. How is that possible? I didn't know how to respond. How did you tell someone that their ex-husband had faked being a victim to spy on actual victims? That the support group meant to heal had been infiltrated from day one? We'll need to debrief everyone, Agent Rodriguez said. Re-examine every piece of evidence Marcus Chen touched. Assume some intelligence leaked to Emily's network. He helped build the financial tracking system, I remembered with growing horror. He had access to our encrypted communications. If Emily's people know our methods, They can adapt, Agent Chen finished grimly. This isn't over. We got the leadership, but the cells are still out there. Hundreds of family operations still running. The mansion blazed with lights as evidence teams worked. 12 criminals who'd thought they were inheriting an empire instead found themselves in federal custody. But the victory felt hollow knowing we'd been compromised from the start. Emily's good, I admitted. Even from custody, she was playing chess while we played checkers, using her arrest as cover to reorganize, planting Marcus to monitor us setting up this meeting to consolidate power. She didn't count on you, Agent Chen pointed out. Your technical skills, your controlled anger, your ability to think like a criminal while staying lawful. You sold that room on accepting you. Because part of me meant it, I confessed. When I talked about channeling rage about burning down my mother's world, that felt real. Too real. The best undercover work always does. But you use that darkness for good. That's what separates justice from revenge. I thought about my mother in federal custody, soon to learn that her criminal network had been shattered. About Emily discovering her lieutenants were arrested and her inside man exposed. About the hundreds of families who'd wake up tomorrow to learn they'd been funding horrors through their trust. What happens now? I asked. Now we process 12 arrests, analyze terabytes of evidence, and prepare for the biggest family fraud prosecution in history. And you decide if you want to continue consulting with us. This was supposed to be one operation, but there are more networks out there, I finished. More Emily's, more family operations, more trust being weaponized. I'm in. As we drove away from the mansion, I watched emergency lights fade in the distance. 3 days ago, I'd been a simple fraud investigator whose mother stole her bonus. Now I was an undercover FBI consultant who'd helped topple a national criminal network. My mother had been right about one thing in her journal. Family was currency. She just never understood that its true value wasn't in theft, but in the trust that made both love and betrayal possible. Tonight, we'd banked on that trust. And for once, the good guys had won. Friday morning arrived with controlled chaos. I sat in the FBI's Situation Room surrounded by monitors showing synchronized raids across 12 states. At exactly 6 a.m. Eastern, 300 federal agents moved against Emily's network in the largest coordinated family fraud bust in American history. Phoenix team breaching. One screen showed agents entering a suburban home where a grandmother ran 5 family theft operations. Dallas team in position. Another displayed the arrest of a youth pastor who'd been stealing from congregation families. Portland deployment confirmed. A third revealed Emily's West Coast coordinator being led away in handcuffs. Agent Chen coordinated from the center podium, her voice calm as she directed resources. Remember, these aren't just financial criminals. They're holding evidence on hundreds of victim families. Secure all documents, all electronics. Every photo album might contain identity theft materials. I manned a station dedicated to real-time financial tracking. As each arrest happened, I froze associated accounts, traced cryptocurrency movements, and documented the mathematical poetry of Emily's network collapsing. Over $14 million in stolen funds locked down in the first hour alone. Julian, Agent Rodriguez called out, "We've got a runner in Chicago. Marcus Chen, the real one, your cousin. He's fleeing his safe house." My blood ran cold. Why would he run? He's a victim. Check your encrypted phone. He sent something before rabbiting. I pulled up our secure messaging app. Marcus's message was brief. "Can't do this. They'll expose everything. I'm sorry." Everything about what? I muttered, but dread was already forming. I pulled up Marcus's financial history, digging deeper than our initial victim verification had gone. They're buried in transactions from 5 years ago was the answer. "Oh, Marcus," I whispered. "What did you do?" Agent Chen appeared at my shoulder. "What did you find?" Marcus wasn't just a victim. Look, 5 years ago before Emily arrived, he was stealing from our grandmother's estate. Small amounts, careful withdrawals. When Emily showed up and started her operation, she must have discovered his theft. Blackmail, Chen concluded. She knew he was dirty, so she robbed him blind, knowing he couldn't report it without exposing himself. Then, when he joined your victim group, he was genuinely angry about being robbed, but terrified Emily would expose his original crimes. His ex-husband must have known, used it as leverage to get inside our group. I felt sick. How many other victims have secrets Emily exploited? As if in answer, reports flooded in from raid teams. In house after house, they found not just evidence of theft, but documentation of victims' secrets, affairs, addictions, minor crimes, embarrassing histories, all cataloged and weaponized. Denver team reporting, a voice crackled over comms. We've got filing cabinets full of victim blackmail material. These people weren't just stealing money, they were stealing secrets. Patricia called from her secure location. Julian, the FBI says I need to come in. Something about disclosures from the arrests. What's happening? I looked to Agent Chen, who nodded permission. Some victims had vulnerabilities Emily's network exploited. The arrests are revealing complications. What kind of complications? Before I could answer, breaking news alerts lit up every phone in the room. Massive FBI raids target family fraud network, hundreds of prominent families involved. The media had the story. Within minutes, news vans surrounded Emily's mansions, victims' homes, and FBI offices. Social media exploded with speculation, accusations, and families discovering their private tragedies had become public entertainment. We need damage control, Agent Rodriguez announced. Victim services is being overwhelmed. These families are learning about thefts, blackmail, and their deepest secrets simultaneously. My phone rang, my father, his voice shaking. Julian, there are reporters at the hotel. They're saying Mom was part of a terrorist funding network. They're saying Emily murdered people. What's happening? Dad, stay inside. Don't talk to anyone. The FBI will send someone. The news says some victims were complicit, that some families deserved what happened. Julian, did I deserve this? His pain cut through the operational chaos. Around me, agents coordinated arrests and evidence, but I heard only my father's broken voice seeking absolution for crimes he didn't commit. No, Dad, you didn't deserve any of this. None of us did. Another call came through. Eleanor from our support group. Dear, I just saw the news. They're saying Emily kept files on all of us. Personal things, things I never told anyone except at vulnerable moments, I finished. When you thought you were safe with family. The Situation Room's main screen switched to a live news conference. A federal prosecutor stood before cameras, trying to control the narrative. But the questions came fast and harsh. How many families? How much money? How long had the FBI known? Why hadn't they acted sooner? Turn it up, Agent Chen ordered. Can confirm over 300 arrests nationwide, the prosecutor stated. This network, led by the individual known as Emily Morrison, among other aliases, specifically targeted family gatherings to identify and exploit vulnerable individuals. The scope includes identity theft, financial fraud, and yes, evidence suggests connection to larger criminal enterprises. A reporter shouted, "Is it true some victims were blackmailed into silence because of their own crimes?" The prosecutor hesitated. That moment of pause told the story better than words. Across America, families watching the news realized their victimization might come with exposure of their own secrets. Agent Kim from Financial Crimes rushed in. "We have a problem." 12 of the arrested operators just simultaneously released encrypted files to news outlets. Dead man switches. If they got arrested, victim secrets go public. Can we stop it? Already propagating through social media. Names, amounts, and personal details. Everything Emily's network collected over decades. I pulled up the leaked files, my heart sinking as I scrolled. There was Aunt Margaret's prescription drug problem used to explain missing money. Uncle Pete's affair that Patricia never knew about. Cousin David's academic cheating that could retroactively cancel his degree. And Marcus, our Marcus, documented stealing from our grandmother before Emily ever arrived. They're not just criminals, I said quietly. They're arsonists. If they burn, everyone burns with them. My encrypted phone buzzed with messages from the victim support group. Panic, confusion, and rage in equal measure. Patricia discovered her husband had hidden gambling debts Emily exploited. Bill learned his construction company's early success came from contracts his wife's family secured through bribes. Eleanor found out her nephew had been selling her information to Emily for years. This is intentional, Agent Chen realized. Emily knew if we ever moved against her network, the mutual destruction would make prosecution nearly impossible. Who's going to testify when their own secrets will be exposed? Everyone, I said firmly, because secrets only have power in darkness. Emily's network counted on shame keeping people silent. But shame didn't steal millions of dollars. Criminals did. The main screen showed aerial footage of one arrest scene. The suspect, a suburban mom who'd run 8 family fraud cells, was being let out while neighbors watched. But instead of hiding, some victims were emerging from their homes, standing together, facing the cameras with defiance rather than shame. "Look," Patricia's voice came through the phone, "the Andersons from down the street. Emily's network stole their retirement. They're not hiding." More families joined them, victims refusing to be shamed by secrets they'd never wanted exposed. The leaked blackmail files had backfired. Instead of silencing victims, it was creating solidarity. Agent Rodriguez answered his phone, then announced, "Emily wants to make a deal. Full cooperation, all network secrets in exchange for minimum security placement. She's scared of general population now that her leverage is gone." "No deals," Agent Chen said flatly. She had her chance. She chose to activate dead man switches instead of genuine cooperation. My father called again. "The news just showed our house. They said Mom was a mastermind who corrupted Emily. That's not true, is it?" "No, Dad. Mom was a criminal, but Emily was the mastermind. Mom was just another mark who happened to also be a predator. The reporters are saying victims should have known better, that we were stupid or complicit. I trusted my wife, Julian. Does that make me stupid?" "It makes you human," I assured him. "Trust isn't stupidity. It's what makes families possible." Emily's network weaponized that trust, but the trust itself was never wrong. Around me, the Situation Room continued its controlled chaos. Arrests, processed evidence cataloged, money traced and frozen. But the human drama playing out across America was beyond any operational metric. Hundreds of families faced not just financial loss, but public exposure of their most private moments. "Final count coming in," Agent Kim announced. 312 arrests, 14.7 million in stolen funds recovered, over 600 victim families identified. And he paused, reading his screen with disbelief. "What?" Agent Chen prompted. 43 of the arrested operators were themselves victims first. Emily's network recruited from people they'd already robbed, turning victims into perpetrators. The cycle of exploitation goes deeper than we imagined, I finished. I thought about Marcus, our Marcus running from his safe house. He'd started as a small-time thief, become a victim, then unknowingly helped his victimizer by joining our support group. The lines between criminal and victim blurred until they became meaningless. "There's something else," Agent Rodriguez said, pulling up new intelligence. "The cryptocurrency Emily controlled. It's moving. Someone's draining the wallets we haven't frozen yet." I jumped back to my financial tracking station. The blockchain showed massive transfers happening in real time. Hundreds of thousands in cryptocurrency flowing through tumblers and exchanges, heading for accounts we couldn't trace. "Emily doesn't have access from custody," I said, fingers flying over the keyboard. "This is someone else, someone with the master keys." Another player, or Emily's insurance policy, someone positioned to salvage what they could if the network fell. I traced patterns looking for signatures in the transaction methods. There, the coffee shop IP address. Someone's at my mother's meeting spot. Agent Chen barked orders. Local units raced toward the coffee shop while I tried to freeze accounts faster than they could empty. But whoever was on the other end knew their business. By the time agents arrived, the coffee shop was empty, except for a laptop set to auto-transfer and a note. "The family business continues. Love, baby Emily." The pregnancy had been fake, but the message was real. Someone else was out there trained by Emily, positioned to rebuild what we'd torn down. The arrests were just the beginning, not the end. "We'll find them," Agent Chen promised, but we both knew the truth. Emily's real genius wasn't in running the network. It was in ensuring it would survive her capture. As Friday became Saturday, news coverage shifted from breaking story to human interest. Families confronting their losses, their exposures, their complicity. Support groups forming not in secret, but in public. Victims refusing to let shame compound their theft. I worked through the night tracing every lead, freezing every account I could find. But somewhere out there, baby Emily, whoever they were, was starting over. New cities, new families, new vulnerabilities to exploit. The war against Emily's network had been won, but the battle against those who weaponized family trust, that would take a lifetime. 3 weeks after the arrests, I sat in a law office that smelled of old leather and older money. Across the mahogany desk, attorney Harrison Blackwood adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and opened a file that would change everything once again. "Miss Montgomery," he began formally, "I represent the estate of Eleanor Richmond Montgomery, your late grandmother. Recent federal investigations have uncovered documents that significantly impact her estate's distribution." "My grandmother died 8 years ago," I said carefully. "Her estate was settled. My mother handled everything as executor." "That's what everyone believed," Blackwood agreed. "However, your grandmother apparently suspected your mother's tendencies. She created a sealed trust with very specific conditions. I was instructed to open it only if Sandra Montgomery was ever convicted of financial crimes against family members." He handed me a letter, the handwriting shaky, but unmistakably my grandmother's. "My dearest Julian, if you're reading this, your mother has finally been caught. I've watched her for years, taking small amounts, manipulating family members, building her little empire of theft. I said nothing, hoping she'd change, hoping I was wrong. But hope doesn't protect the innocent. I've left everything to you in a generation-skipping trust, not to spite Sandra, but to ensure something good comes from our family's wealth." The official will she filed was forged. I let her believe she'd fooled me while I secured my real legacy through Harrison. "Use it wisely. Use it to heal what she broke. All my love, Grandmother Eleanor." My hands trembled. "How much?" "The trust has grown considerably over 8 years. Blackwood consulted his papers. Current value is approximately $4.2 million. Additionally, there are properties in Maine and Vermont, a portfolio of blue-chip stocks, and interestingly detailed documentation of every theft your mother committed from family members dating back 15 years. She knew. I struggled to process this. My grandmother knew and documented everything. She was a forensic accountant before marrying your grandfather, Blackwood revealed. She tracked every penny, created a comprehensive record. She wanted evidence preserved in case it was ever needed. It seems she understood your mother better than anyone. Patricia and Marcus, the real Marcus, who'd finally returned after his panicked flight, sat beside me as witnesses. The FBI had cleared him after determining Emily had indeed blackmailed him over his minor theft, using it to justify stealing hundreds of thousands from him. "There's more," Blackwood continued. "Your grandmother established a second trust, a victims' compensation fund. She set aside $1 million specifically to repay those your mother stole from. She couldn't act during her lifetime without destroying the family, but she prepared for justice after her death." I laughed, surprising everyone, including myself. The sound was part relief, part amazement, part grief for a grandmother I'd never truly known. She'd played a longer game than anyone, letting my mother believe she was the master manipulator while quietly documenting crimes and preparing restitution. "The properties," Patricia asked, ever practical. "What did she intend for those?" Blackwood smiled. "The main property is a compound, 6 houses on 50 acres. Her notes suggest turning it into a retreat for fraud victims. The Vermont property is commercial, generating rental income that could fund ongoing support services." My phone buzzed, Agent Chen asking me to call immediately. I excused myself and stepped onto the law office's balcony. Julian, we've had a break in the baby Emily case. The cryptocurrency movements you tracked. They led us to a 22-year-old named Rebecca Chen, no relation to Marcus. She was Emily's protege for the last 2 years, positioned as her successor. Did you arrest her? That's why I'm calling. She wants to make a deal, but she'll only talk to you. Says you're the only one who understands the family business from both sides. An hour later, I sat across from Rebecca Chen in an FBI interview room. She looked impossibly young, like a college student rather than a criminal mastermind in training. But her eyes held the same calculating coldness I'd seen in Emily's. You ruined everything, she said without preamble. Years of training, careful positioning, perfect plans. Destroyed because you couldn't just accept your loss and move on. You're right. I agreed, surprising her. I could have accepted the 23,000, moved on, let the cycle continue. Why didn't I? She leaned forward, genuinely curious. Why didn't you? Because my grandmother knew the answer 8 years ago. Family wealth isn't meant to be stolen. It's meant to heal what theft breaks. You and Emily, you see families as resources to extract, but families are gardens. You can harvest sustainably, or you can strip mine. Guess which one leaves something for the next generation? Pretty words, Rebecca scoffed, but Emily taught me the truth. Every family has a Sandra Montgomery, someone willing to prey on trust. We just organized them, gave them tools, made it efficient. And in doing so created me, I countered, and the 300 others who testified against your network. You industrialized family theft and created an industrial-sized response. Emily's in federal prison. Her lieutenants are facing decades inside. You're 22 and looking at life without parole. How's that for efficiency? Her composure cracked slightly. I can give you names. The next generation Emily was training, kids positioned in families across America ready to activate in 5-10 years, long-term plants who think they're just beloved relatives. The scope was staggering. Emily hadn't just run a network, she'd created a criminal franchise system designed to outlive her. But Rebecca's willingness to betray it suggested the system's fatal flaw. Criminals who prey on family loyalty have none themselves. Make your deal, I advised, but understand something. My grandmother left me millions, not for a personal gain, but to systematically undo what people like you create. Every family you've planted agents in will be warned. Every vulnerable elder protected. Every trust fortified against exploitation. You can't stop human nature, Rebecca insisted. Greed, opportunity, family dysfunction, they're eternal. So is love, I replied. And redemption, and the choice to build rather than steal. My mother chose wrong, Emily chose wrong, you chose wrong. But those choices created opportunities for hundreds of us to choose right. I left her there to contemplate her options while returning to the law office. Blackwood had prepared the paperwork to establish the Eleanor Montgomery Foundation for Family Fraud Prevention. The $4.2 million would fund education support services and recovery programs for victims nationwide. Your grandmother would be proud, Patricia said as I signed documents. She played the longest game of all. Marcus, still processing his own complicated relationship with theft and victimhood, asked quietly, do you think people can really change? Can someone who's stolen from family ever be trusted again? I thought about my mother in federal prison, writing letters of apology I couldn't yet bring myself to read. About the 43 arrested operators who'd started as victims. About Rebecca young enough to choose a different path if she wanted. I think, I said carefully, that change is possible, but trust is earned. Graham knew that. She didn't trust Mom to change, but she trusted that eventually someone in our family would choose differently. She bet millions on that trust. The news of the inheritance and victim fund made headlines that evening. Fraud victim inherits millions, pledges to help others. The story reframed our family narrative, no longer just about theft and betrayal, but about foresight and redemption. Donations poured in from other families who'd discovered their own Sandra Montgomerys. Within a week, the foundation had $10 million in pledged support. The main property was being renovated to host support retreats. The Vermont building would house the first national center for family fraud prevention. Emily, watching from federal prison, reportedly threw her television against the wall when she saw the news. Her network built on exploiting family bonds was being replaced by one built on protecting them. The student had surpassed the teacher, just not in the way she'd intended. My father moved into one of the main houses, temporarily finding peace in managing the renovation project. "It's like building something clean after living in corruption," he told me. "Your grandmother gave us a second chance." The victim support group evolved into the foundation's first advisory board. Patricia developed curriculum for family financial literacy. Bill created contractor verification systems to prevent exploitation. Eleanor, at 87, became our most powerful spokesperson, her dignity in the face of theft and inspiring others to come forward. 3 months later, at the foundation's official launch, I stood before 200 family fraud survivors. Behind me hung portraits of my grandmother and all the victims who'd been silenced by shame or death. Rebecca Chen sat in the front row, having taken a plea deal to help identify and prevent future family infiltrations. Her 20-year sentence would include teaching us Emily's methods to better defend against them. My grandmother knew a secret, I told the crowd. She knew that family thieves count on two things: our trust and our silence. She gave us tools to maintain the first while breaking the second. Every person here represents a family that refused to let theft define them. Together, we're writing a different ending to the story Emily thought she authored. Afterward, Agent Chen, now Director Chen of the FBI's new Family Fraud Division, pulled me aside. "The Baby Emily investigation led us to 12 more networks. We're going to need the Foundation's help." "You have it," I assured her. "Graham left us more than money. She left us a mission." That night, I finally read one of my mother's letters from prison. Her handwriting, once so confident on forged documents, now shook with genuine emotion. "Julian, I heard about Mother's trust. I should have known she was smarter than me. She always was. I'm glad the money will help others. I'm glad you're building something good from my ruins. I won't ask for forgiveness. I stole too much for that. But I want you to know that in her twisted way, Emily taught me something. She showed me what I'd become by being an even darker mirror. I chose family as my victims. She chose victims as her family. Both paths led to prison. Use grandmother's gift well. Stop others like me before they destroy what matters. Your mother, for what that's worth." I filed the letter with the others, unready to respond but unwilling to discard. Somewhere in federal prison, two women who'd built empires on family betrayal contemplated their losses. Somewhere in America, their planted agents were being discovered and prevented. And somewhere in Maine, my father was learning to trust again while building housing for other victims. My grandmother had been right. She couldn't fix my mother, but she'd ensured her damage wouldn't be the final word. $4.2 million wouldn't erase the pain of hundreds of families, but it could build structures to prevent thousands more from suffering the same fate. The family business had new management, and this time, we were in the business of protection, not predation. The cycle hadn't just been broken, it had been reversed. 2 years later, I stood in the conference room of Montgomery Financial Security Solutions, watching my team put finishing touches on our latest presentation. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, Portland's skyline sparkled in the morning sun. The company I'd built with Marcus and my father had just landed its biggest contract yet, protecting a Fortune 500 company's employees from family-based fraud. "Clients here," Patricia announced from the doorway. She joined us 6 months ago as head of education services, her principal's instincts perfect for teaching financial literacy. They brought their entire board. Apparently, 3 board members discovered family fraud schemes last quarter. "The holiday season," Marcus noted grimly. "Emily's network may be gone, but copycats learned her playbook. Family gatherings are still hunting grounds for predators." My father entered with coffee, his movement easier now that therapy had helped him process the trauma. He'd become our operations manager, his natural trust balanced by hard-won wisdom about verification. Remember, he advised, these executives are scared. They've learned what we learned, that family can be the greatest vulnerability. As clients filled our conference room, I thought about how far we'd come. Montgomery Financial Security Solutions had started as a simple consulting firm but evolved into something more. We didn't just investigate fraud. We prevented it through education technology and the hard-earned expertise of survivors. Ladies and gentlemen, I began the presentation. 24 months ago, I discovered my mother had stolen my entire year-end bonus. That theft led to uncovering a nationwide criminal network that had stolen millions from families across America. Today, we're here to ensure your employees never experience what we did. The presentation flowed smoothly. Marcus demonstrated our proprietary software that detected unusual account access patterns. Patricia explained our family financial literacy programs. My father shared corporate policies that protected employees while respecting family bonds. Each element was born from pain, but refined into prevention. The most important thing to understand, I concluded, is that family fraud isn't about bad families. It's about good people whose trust gets weaponized against them. Our program doesn't destroy trust. It creates healthy boundaries that actually strengthen family relationships. The CEO, a woman whose own sister had stolen her identity, asked the question. Everyone wondered, what happened to the criminals, Emily's network? Emily Morrison is serving life without parole in federal maximum security, I replied. She was convicted on 43 counts of wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering, and conspiracy to fund criminal enterprises. Her network of 312 operators received sentences ranging from 10 years to life. The last of her protégés, including Rebecca Chen, are cooperating with authorities to identify and prevent copycat operations. And your mother? Another board member asked gently. Sandra Montgomery is serving 8 years in federal minimum security. She cooperated fully after arrest, helping recover approximately 70% of stolen funds. She teaches financial literacy to other inmates now. Court-ordered community service with a bitter irony that's not lost on anyone. I didn't mention the letters she sent monthly, each one dissecting another aspect of her crimes, examining her psychology with the same detail she'd once applied to studying victims. I'd started reading them 6 months ago. Forgiveness remained distant, but understanding had begun creeping in. The contract signing took an hour. $3 million for comprehensive family fraud prevention services across their 30,000 employees. Our biggest victory yet, built on the foundations of our greatest losses. That afternoon, we held our monthly video conference with the victim support group. Faces appeared on screen from across the country. The original 9 had grown to over 200 regular participants. Eleanor, now 89, still sharp as ever, led the session from her apartment in the main compound. Updates from the foundation, she began briskly. We've helped 4,300 families recover from fraud this quarter. Education programs reached 12,000. Early warning systems prevented approximately 8 million in attempted thefts. Bill's construction company had been rebuilt stronger than before. He now verified the contractors for the foundation, ensuring renovation projects didn't become new opportunities for exploitation. Caught 2 crews this month trying all Emily-style schemes, word spreading that families aren't easy marks anymore. Patricia shared success stories from the education programs. Marcus outlined legal victories. Precedents set, laws strengthened, protections expanded. Each update represented hundreds of families spared what we'd endured. Anyone heard from David? Someone asked about my cousin, who'd lost his college fund decades ago. He graduated last month, I shared. Finished his degree at 53, paid for by the foundation. He's joining our Denver office next week as a counselor. The call ended with our traditional closing, not a prayer or pledge, but a simple reminder. Trust wisely, verify always, and remember that real family multiplies joy, not theft. That evening, I returned to the office to find an unexpected visitor. Rebecca Chen, on supervised release after serving 18 months, stood in our lobby. She wore a visitor's badge and the haunted expression of someone reconstructing their identity after everything false had been stripped away. "I start community college next week," she said without preamble. "Accounting, if you can believe it. The legitimate kind. I wanted to thank you for the recommendation letter." "You earned it," I replied. 18 months of helping us identify and prevent Emily's plantings saved hundreds of families. That matters. "I was one of those plantings," she admitted. "Did you know Emily found me at 15, positioned me with a foster family she'd researched? Everything I knew about family came from her playbook. Love as leverage, trust as weakness, loyalty as liability. And now I'm learning differently. The Chen family, my foster family, they visited me inside. Even after learning I'd been positioned to rob them, they came. They said real family doesn't abandon people even when they've done wrong. I'm still figuring out what that means." I understood. My father had visited my mother every month for the past year. Not to forgive, that remained his choice to make in his own time, but to demonstrate that family bonds could survive even calculated betrayal. It was a lesson both the betrayer and betrayed needed to learn. "The foundation has internships," I offered. "Paid positions for people rebuilding after fraud involvement. Interested?" Her eyes widened. "You'd trust me." "Trust with verification," I corrected. "Background checks, supervised access, limited responsibilities at first. But yes, people deserve chances to choose differently." My grandmother believed that. She left millions betting on it. A month later, our company's second anniversary party filled the main compound's main lodge. Hundreds gathered. Employees, clients, foundation beneficiaries, and reformed criminals like Rebecca, working toward redemption. The victim support group's original 9 served as hosts. Our shared trauma transformed into collective strength. My father raised a toast as the sun set over the Atlantic. "To Eleanor, Richmond, Montgomery, who saw clearly when we were blind. To the families we've protected and those we'll save tomorrow. To second chances and wisdom earned the hard way. And to Julian," Patricia added, "who refused to let theft be the end of our story." Glasses raised across the room. In the corner, a secure video screen showed my mother from a federal prison, allowed to watch, though not participate. Her expression held something I'd never seen during her glory days of manufactured family moments. Genuine pride without calculation behind it. Agent Chen, Director Chen, pulled me aside as the party continued. "The international operations we discussed, Brazil, UK, Australia, we're ready to move, but we need Montgomery, financial securities expertise. You built something here that works. Help us scale it globally." I looked around the room at faces that had journeyed from victim to victor, from isolated to united, from shame to strength. Marcus laughed at something Bill said. Patricia organized group photos with Eleanor. My father, finally at peace, chatted with Rebecca about her accounting studies. "We're in," I confirmed. "The family business is going international." But this family business was different, built on trust instead of theft, verification, instead of violation, strength, drawn from shared survival. We'd learned that family bonds could be weaponized, but also that they could be armor when properly maintained. Later that night, I walked alone on the main property my grandmother had secured for this purpose. Her foresight still amazed me. She'd known my mother would fall, that Emily would rise, that victims would need sanctuary and criminals would need redemption. She'd prepared for all of it, trusting someone would eventually use her tools wisely. My phone buzzed with a message from the Foundation's AI monitoring system. Another suspicious pattern detected, another family about to be protected. The work never ended, but neither did the satisfaction of prevention. In federal prison, Emily Morrison sat in solitary confinement. Her network dismantled, her legacy reversed. She'd built an empire on the principle that family meant nothing but opportunity. We'd built something stronger on the truth that family properly understood meant everything worth protecting. The last letter I'd received from my mother contained a single line. "I taught you to count money. Your grandmother taught you what counts. She won. We all had. Not because we'd recovered stolen funds or imprisoned criminals, but because we'd refused to let betrayal define us. Every protected family, every educated elder, every prevented theft was a victory my grandmother had envisioned from her grave. As I headed back to the lodge, my phone rang. A potential victim in Seattle, suspicious of their son's sudden interest in their finances. Tomorrow, our rapid response team would investigate, probably preventing another tragedy. The cycle Emily had perpetuated for profit, we now interrupted for protection. Thank you for calling Montgomery Financial Security Solutions, I answered. Tell me what's concerning you about your family situation. Because that was our business now. Not theft, but trust, not exploitation, but education, not isolation, but community. My mother had taught me that family was currency. My grandmother had taught me it was an investment. Emily had taught me it could be weaponized. But we'd all learned together that it could be shielded, strengthened, and saved. The family business continued, reformed, and redirected. And somewhere I hoped my grandmother was watching, satisfied that her patient gambit had paid off exactly as planned. Family wealth properly managed had indeed healed what theft had broken. As I share this story with you, I want to ask, have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you rebuild that trust? Or did you choose to walk away? Share your experiences in the comments below. You might help someone else who's struggling with family financial abuse. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more about recognizing and preventing family fraud. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that they're not alone, that being trusting doesn't make you weak, and that there's hope for justice and healing. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, real family multiplies joy, not theft. Trust wisely, verify always, and never let shame silence your truth.